O Lord, deliver me from hell's great fear and gloom. Loose thou my spirit from the larvae of the tomb. I seek them in their dread abodes without affright. On them I impose my will, the law of light. I bid the night conceive the glittering hemisphere. Arise, O sun, arise, O moon, shine white and clear. I seek them in their dread abodes without fright. On them I impose my will, the law of light. Their faces and their shapes are terrible and strange. These devils by my might to angels I will change. These nameless horrors I address without fright. On them I impose my will, the law of light. These are the phantoms pale of mine astonished view, yet none but I their blasted beauty can renew. For to the abyss of hell I plunge without fright. On them I impose my will, the law of light. This is All Things Esoteric, episode 27 on the archetype of the magician. My name is Anthony, and I'm here with Kate.
Good evening. Welcome.
And today we're going to cover all aspects of the magician, from its meaning in a tarot divination, the symbols on the card itself, the deeper meaning of the magician, the astrology, numerology, the lives of real life magicians with firsthand accounts of their working. And now I think, Kate, you would like to start off with the Rider-Waite deck.
So, according to the Rider-Waite deck, or sometimes I call it the Smith-Waite, because Paula Coleman Smith didn't get a lot of, what's the word? She didn't get a lot of acclaim for her great work and artistry that she put in, and I talk about her a little later. She really didn't get a lot of notoriety that she should have gotten. But the key words here attributed to Arthur Edward Waite himself. This is from Understanding the Tarot Deck, Arthur Waite's famous pictorial keys and explanations. And this is a book about that put out by Citadel Press. And I do not own this information. And it says this on page 72. The magician, a youthful figure in the robe of a magician, having the countenance of divine Apollo. Do you know who Apollo was, Anthony, off the top of your head?
Yes, sun god, youthful, music.
Yeah, music, prophecy, healing, and light. There's a shadow side, of course. With smile of confidence and shining eyes, above his head is the mysterious sign of the Holy Spirit. And in my studies going deeper on the magician, I came across this over and over and over, how the 8 above his head ties to the Holy Spirit and the monad. I digress. I will get to that in a minute. The sign of life, like an endless cord, forming the figure 8 in a horizontal position. Above his waist is a serpent cincture, the serpent appearing to devour its own tail. This is this is familiar to most as a conventional symbol of eternity. But here it indicates more, especially the eternity of attainment in the spirit. In the magician's right hand is a wand raised towards heaven, while the left hand is pointing to earth. This dual sign is known in very high grades of the instituted mysteries. It shews the descent of grace, virtue, and light. Again, you've got 3, as in the Trinity, the 3 monads, the crown, Kether, understanding, Bana, and wisdom, Shakma, on the tree of life. Again and again, that symbolism comes forth with that 8 above his head.
I'll just add right now the Golden Dawn and Crowley attribute the magician card to the path on the tree of life that joins Kether to Binah.
Correct.
And that also connects to the Holy Spirit and Babylon, the source, and everything we were just talking about.
Correct. Because from there it goes down, and finally reaches beauty on a path and then comes back over to Splendor 8, which is Mercury, which is Had. You have to kind of be looking at the tree of life, the Kabbalah tree of life, to really get a good grasp of this. In the magician's right hand is a wand raised towards heaven, while the left hand is pointing down. I read that, sorry. Instituted mystery, it shews the descent of grace, virtue, and light drawn from things above. This is key. And derived to things below. The suggestion throughout is therefore the possession and communication of the powers and gifts of the Spirit. On the table in front of the magician are the symbols of the 4 tarot suits, signifying the elements of natural life, which lie like counters before the adept, and he adapts them as he wills. Beneath are roses and lilies, the floss campi and the lilium convallium, changed into garden flowers to shew the culture of aspiration. This card signifies the divine motive in man, reflecting God, the will and the liberation of its union with that which is above. It is also the unity of individual being on all planes, and in a very high sense, it is thought in the fixation thereof. With further reference to what I have called the sign of life in its connection, that's CONNEXION, with the number 8, it may be remembered that Christian Gnosticism speaks of rebirth in Christ as a change unto the Ogdode. And I looked that up. And the Ogdode has to do with 8 divine beings in Gnosticism that have higher levels of spiritual awakening attributed to them. Are you familiar?
Yes, it's usually pronounced Ogdoad.
Thank you. Okay. Ogdoad, that makes more sense. The mystic number is termed Jerusalem above, the land flowing with milk and honey, the Holy Spirit, and the land of the Lord. According to Martinism, 8 is the number of Christ, or the mystical order. So that's where 8 comes in again. And that was from his Arthur Waite's own understanding in the pictorial keys. Now back to the card a little bit. I want to hone in on this imagery. Magician, as you've seen him, it's very serious demeanor in the Waite deck. Focus, ability, action, creative, power, communication, resourcefulness was represented when you see this card. Note it is right after 0, of course. So we're looking at 1. That number is very important whenever we look at this card and consider its meaning. Magician's a card of vision, resourcefulness, and magic. Represents using the power of your mind and the tools available to you to bring about something you desire. When the magician appears, it's an invitation to get very clear about what you want and to assess the resources you have available to achieve that outcome. This is from, I'm going to go into the Galaxy Tarot here. When your intentions and actions are aligned, real magic can happen. Key. This is a card of manifestation attributed with Mercury. We have the cup, the wand, the sword, the pentacle, and we can go into that deeper, but I'm not going to do that here. But cups represent water, of course. The wand representing fire, sword representing intellect, air, and pentacle representing earth. You have the rose, which symbolizes love and beauty and passion all around him. Hanging above him in an arch to the left and the right, and also underneath him in bounty, completely surrounded by beauty and flowers, and they signify the fullness of emotions and the depth of connections. The lily, white lily, is very important in the tarot deck. It symbolizes purity, renewal, and spiritual awakening, and represents embracing true essence, reconnecting with your inner self. The infinity symbol, this represents eternity, cycles, and balance. It shows the circle of beginning and end and the flow thereof right above his mind. And you might have more on that, but it's important to see where it's seated. You know, it's not on the table, right? It's seated above his head. Do you have anything to comment on that?
I would say, well, the Thoth deck doesn't have an 8 above his head. He actually has something a little different on his head. But you probably want to finish your description of the weight before we get into the Thoth description.
Yeah, I definitely want you to do the Thoth, because, and I think most who listen to us, who's out there, knows that's what you follow, and I follow more of the Rider-Waite. And I have other decks too, but you're really a hardcore Thoth deck, right?
Yeah. Did you want to finish your weight information before
Yep,
I get
I
into
do.
that?
Yeah, I have a couple more things here. It's important to note the number 1 with this deck. 1 bursting with energy of creation. You know, we see the aces. I want to read here from the Tarot and Astrology. Enhance your readings with the wisdom of the zodiac. Corinne Kenner. I don't own this information, but she's got a really nice segment here. And she talks about Kether, the crown, which is 1, right? So this ties us, this is how this really ties us to the crown. I know you're going to go into that. And it also ties us to the 4 aces of the deck, the initial sparks that set everything into motion, and they nudge us and harness our drive, allowing us to move out on earth in our own uniqueness. In essence, we're the one, really. We are that one. And its astrological association there is ether in the realm of spirit. The aces, this is a quote, page 88 from her book. The aces, the first card in every suit, represent a singularity. They symbolize unity, a single purpose, and a sole point of origin. The aces are the source of all creation. And in the 4 worlds of the Kabbalah, they each represent a separate element: fire, water, air, and earth. However, the elements aren't manifested in material form. They're still in a state of pure potential. Like seeds, they contain the promise and the possibility of all the number cards that follow. And I think this is crucial because again and again, I ran across this, a whole thing about, and I have it in my notes. Let me grab this. But it's the magician requires action. The magician requires you to move out with what's a focused will, is a better way to put it. You know, it's nothing until
It's
you,
Shakma, essentially.
yeah,
Right. And Shakma is the second uh, sphere on the tree of life. Although it has the Roman numeral 1, the Magus is the second card, because 0 is the first. And also I would add the Hebrew letter that is attributed to it. Beth is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet
right.
and has a numerical value of 2. So it is very much a masculine energy. Crowley even describes it as the polar opposite of the high priestess, the masculine counterpart.
The number 1 is a universal symbol of unity, origin, and beginning. It signifies the point before diversity, the singular source from which all creation flows. It represents the idea of the Godhead, or the highest indivisible creative force. Ether, that which we cannot see. So if the fool is pure potential, right? 0, the magician is the focused will that activates that potential. That's the way I saw it.
It's the connection to Kether. That's the source. That's the pure potential. And the will is what manifests that potential.
Which requires understanding Bana,
Right. But
Saturn
also
rules the
masculine
9.
energy,
Yep.
because you can't create anything without masculine and physical and feminine energy.
Yep. Yep. And on my Kabbalah tree of life, they include Neptune and Pluto. And Neptune is on Shakma, wisdom, pillar 2.
Yes.
Okay. So in the 1, we see unity of purpose, concentrated will, initiative, and the ability to manifest. The magician takes the 4 elements, the tools we see on his table, and directs them with a single focus to create. And Pythagoreanism, but we're all shown the importance of the aces. I look this up off of the internet, and this is off of Wikipedia after digging into numerology on this card in 1, and it's Pythagorean thought says the number 1 is the monad, the source of all numbers in existence. It's not merely a number, this is powerful, but the generator of the universe. Like, that's Kether.
Right.
In modern the number 1 in modern numerology is associated with leadership, independence. It's the first house in the zodiac, cardinal Aries, right? Where it's highly pioneering spirit, ambition, innovation, energy of the self, the ego, and the leader, tying also to Had on the tree of life as splendor. Got to remember it ties back down in there. If we do all that work before we get to Had, right? We're doing that work. We can see how it then can become splendor. The aces and the 4 suits represent the initiatory creative thought, idea, project, or goal at hand, and they represent the single idea or spark that precedes the whole project. It's in the mind where it begins. It's in the mind where it begins, and I think that's everything on the card. Is there anything else? Let me take a peek here. Oh, I do want to say there's other Mercuries that show up. I thought this was I'm not going to go through them all, but if you want to do a little deeper dive, just check all the Mercury cards in the tarot. They all tie back to the magician. And that's the 8 of Wands, the messenger card, which is Sagittarius and Mercury. 3 of Cups, which is Cancer and Mercury. 6 of Swords, Aquarius and Mercury. 5 of Pentacles, Taurus in Mercury. And the 10 of Pentacles, Virgo in Mercury. And also I read that some writers said, whenever you see the Page of Swords or the Knight of Swords, those are keys to Mercury. And the action they're making help you in your movement of using those tools on the table to create something. So I thought that was interesting. And then you have all the cards that reduce to the 1, which is Magician, Wheel of Fortune, which is fate, change, breakthrough, luck, expansion cycles, the Sun, vitality, joy, success, optimism, clarity, authenticity, the Ace of Wands, Ace of Cups, Ace of Swords, Ace of Pentacles. So all the cards speak together, but I know the major arcana cards are the main themes. So when the magician rolls up, it is time for you to harness everything that's on that table that's available. And I think when I see the magician, it says to me, you've got everything you need, but you're not getting your body in a place where the answers can come. You know what I'm saying?
Not grounded.
Yeah, that's what I see, because a lot about Mercury really is practical magic or ceremonial magic. And Waite like to really move it into a spiritual perspective, and we'll get to this in a minute. And Crawley kept it real ceremonial. And in fact, that was the thing that split them. And the leader of the Golden Dawn, that Mathers dude, there was a big split that took place over this because of their perspective, which the Thoth death was written, which I think was almost like a middle finger up to Waite.
Yeah,
I really do.
it was largely based on the Golden Dawn deck. It's basically the Golden Dawn deck with Crowley's tweaks and ideas, pretty much.
It is, but I think that, well, let's talk about that when we get there. Red is really important. He's draped in white, but the red really captures my attention in this card. And it shows you that there's a passion here. He's draped in it, right? So you have to engage your passion. And I wanted to say, if your mind, Mercury, communication, ability to exchange your ideas and intellect with others is damaged because of trauma and perhaps compromise through pharmaceuticals you have to take to manage your trauma, I want to say it's going to be very difficult to manifest. Very difficult. The magician card's very clear and clean, and there's no fluff with it. Like, everything's there on the table, and he's telling you what to do, and he's staring right at you with that red cloak, saying, look, this is action. This is you taking your vitality and engaging it with ether. This is going to take courage. This is going to take your dynamic energy. There's a requirement with the red cloak. And then the yellow always stands for optimism. Anytime we see yellow, clarity, there's bright sunlight. If you want to have clarity in this life, if you want to know how to walk the royal road, I'm showing you the way, he says. It's very, very clear. His whole background. You ever hear someone say, oh, well, let me give you the background of the story, right?
Right.
That background is huge to this card because it's draped in it.
I'm going to do that later.
Intellect, optimism, clarity, lights the path of wisdom, joyful exploration. The sun card itself with the child, it's all golden. Really important to see that. And then the last color I want to hit is white. He has got a white linen garment on, probably linen of a high vibration, I would say, cloth or texture. And it's right up against his skin with his white band on his head. I mean, come on. This is come from a place of, I would say, knowing that it's white. You can paint that canvas. It's you're the canvas. New beginnings, fresh starts, clean slates. You get the magician. It's almost like a compliment too. If you're really having a tough time and maybe you're looking for some guidance, you do a reading, he comes out. Man, I just get confidence when I get the magician, because with him is resourcefulness. With him is the ability for creative action and power. And that new beginning, that new creative step that you take could change your whole world. How many times has someone done something and then it becomes really important, excuse me, or really popular, or not necessarily even famous? Because I don't think because you're famous that you're more valuable. I don't see it like that. But just something that in your life really, really matters. And I hope I'm not getting too far off, but this white here, let us not miss it, especially with that white lily poking up on the bottom.
It's a symbol of Kether also.
Yes, the crown, right? Beautiful. And that's all I had for the symbolism of the card itself. So you want to go into the Thoth deck next?
Yes, the depiction of the Magus, it is called the Magus in the Thoth deck, not the magician or the juggler as in other decks. And of course, the depiction is a little different. This is from a book called Understanding Crowley's Book of Thoth by Lon Milo Duquette. He says, the figure of the Magus actually forms the alchemical glyph of Mercury. The two snakes at his head arc the horns, and the huge stylized wings at his feet make the arrowhead. He is projected upon the caduceus of Mercury. Behind the left wing and his feet, barely visible, is a golden sunburst affirming Mercury's role as the herald of the sun. Behind the right wing is the cynocephalus, the ape of Thoth. This creature, who seems to be groping its way up from the lower right-hand corner of the card, is the personification of an ironic curse that afflicts Thoth Mercury and all who attain the grade of Magus. Because falsehood and misunderstanding are inherent in all speech and writing. It is the cosmic duty of the ape of Thoth to constantly mock the work of the Magus and distort his words. As Crowley points out, manifestation implies illusion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture. I pulled it up. He almost looks like a trickster.
That is definitely Mercury.
Yes, absolutely. But he can have higher forms. Mercury.
Right? Oh yeah, he's both. I mean,
Yeah.
one would say all of existence is a trick. I mean, the way I understood that is, well, if you combine it with another concept that you've probably heard before, if everything, including the universe, is manifested by the word, in the beginning there was the word, the logos, but in all language, there is falsehood and misunderstanding. That is true, especially of the higher concepts. Like when you go deep into meditation or deep in a psychedelic trip and you learn the things that really matter, words fall so short.
Yeah.
But the beginning of the universe is a word. So that kind of makes sense that manifestation implies illusion. And then later on, I found in the writings, this is in a book called The Hebrew Letters by Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg. The Hebrew letter associated with the mage is Beth or Bayit, sometimes it is called.
Mm-hmm.
The meaning is house and the numerical value is 2. And this is what Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg says about the Hebrew letter Beth. The visible lines of Beth symbolize levels of divine revelation, while the missing north implies concealment of divine presence. In a deeper sense, every conscious revelation itself possesses a hidden superconscious level of concealment. Within himself, God contains 2 antithetical states. In general, these 2 states are the simultaneous concealment of God's essence and the revelation of his light, or at a lower level, the revelation of light to higher states of consciousness and the concealment of light to lower states of consciousness. He's saying the exact same thing. The role of the mage is to do both, right? Because it's a non-dual perspective, because in truth there is lies, in lies there is truth. It's like there is no hot or cold. It's looking at the bigger picture of temperature. It's a non-dual perspective, and non-dualism is also an aspect of Kether, because Kether existed before everything split off into dyads and dyads and dyads and fragments and all the different levels of reality.
Right.
And I thought that was really profound.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have Beth literally means house or temple, the 12th path. The magician connects Kether, the crown, divine source, pure potential, to Binah, understanding form, the great mother. Magician is the architect, Beth, the house who channels the infinite potential of Kether and begins to give it form in Binah. It is the first step of bringing divine thought into manifestation. The transparent intelligence is something I came across, which is related to the Kabbalah language, and the magician's intelligence here is clear and allows the divine light to pass through without distortion. So that's what's available, right? Think about this. That is what's available to us. Now, I think it gets distorted when it comes down through our own mental framework and psychopathy, in the way that our own life path and journey and all the lessons we learned and our ancestry and everything that makes us us. You know, it's this pure, raw, clean, white potential that has to come down through us. It's alchemy at its purest and rawest form. It's alchemy. And it astounds me when I think about it. And I know this, Kether. I'm very familiar with Kether's voice. Being a spiritual person, you know, I'm not ashamed to say that. I have heard divine beings. I have heard other beings, not so divine. I have heard other archetypes manifest themselves in different forms. But Kether, it's got to be. It's got to be source. It has to be, because it comes unadulterated, like you were saying. There's no gender to it. It just is.
Yeah. That's non-dualism.
Right.
And continuing with that theme, Crowley describes the Magus in the Book of Wisdom or Folly, is the next reference. And he also includes this again in the Book of Thoth. He says, Tahuti, or Thoth, confirmed the word of Dionysus by continuing it, for he shewed how by the mind it was possible to direct the operations of the will. By criticism and by recorded memory, man avoided error, and by the repetition of error. But the true word of Tahuti was Amon, whereby he made men to understand their secret nature, that is, their unity with their true selves, or as they then phrased it, with God. And he discovered unto them the way of this attainment, and its relation with the formula of INRI. Also, by his mystery of number, he made plain the path for his successor to declare the nature of the whole universe in its form and in its structure, and as it were an analysis thereof, doing for matter what the Buddha was decreed to do for mind. I thought that was a really beautiful description of Mercury, maybe the most beautiful one I've ever heard.
Well, it's about aligning the personal will, the magician, with divine will, Kether. That's how I see it. Like the house, Beth, is the self, our body, mind, spirit.
And that is pretty much what Crowley meant when he said, love is the law of love under will, because love is Kether, and under means it's the foundation of will.
Yes.
That's really what he meant.
Well, the house, Beth, is the container for the spirit, and we have to prepare our house, our skills, right? We have to focus to be a worthy channel. So, you know, the magician, I think, is the ultimate reminder that you are the primary creator of your life. You're not passive. You possess the tools, mental capacity, and spiritual connection to manifest if you move out with the tools on the table. There's qualifiers, a lot of qualifiers with this card. Like, it's all there, but what's missing? Movement, right? Any kind of movement. Manifestation, yeah. I have here the magician, or the master of manifestation. The magician is the conduit of divine energy, connecting mind, spirit, and matter, earth, through active will and communication, bringing Mercury in here. Card represents willpower, focused intention, and mastery of the elements. The ability to turn vision into reality through conscious effort. So the magician is the first card out of the gate on our soul evolutionary journey on what's called the royal road, the Tarot, towards ascension. Understanding this is imperative because all the other cards that follow, and there are 20 more to conclude the deck, rely on the magician maintaining his connection to ether and utilizing the tools or alchemical elements on the table to manifest his divine will on earth. If the traveler on the royal road forgets to rely on ether and use his tools and abilities, he could lose his way. What I want to talk about real quick is some Eastern philosophy viewpoints and then the etymology and evolution of the word. Talk about the etymology and evolution of the word magician, which I thought was really interesting. So Eastern philosophies, Taoism, China, country of China, the Tao and the One, the Tao Te Ching states, the Tao gave birth to one. This reminds me of what you quoted earlier. The Tao gave birth to one. The one gave birth to two. The two gave birth to three. The three gave birth to all things. There we have the monad again, the Trinity.
That's Kabbalah.
Again. Yeah, the Trinity again, crown, Bana, Shakma, understanding, wisdom. Yeah, it's all there.
Check out Robert Sepper's work for the connection, why there's a connection between the East and the West like that. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. I'd like to know more about that. Let's talk about that sometime because I'm interested. The one is the initial undivided unity, the primal state of the universe before the duality. This is important, of yin and yang. It is the cosmic source of harmony and simplicity, representing the original origin of all existence. In Hinduism, India, the Brahman in Ekam Sat, the Upanishads emphasize the concept of Ekam Sat, truth is one, meaning this refers to the fundamental single reality, Brahman, that underlies all manifest existence. The multitude of gods and forms are viewed as simply expressions of this one, the indivisible divine consciousness. The number one is the ultimate goal. Understanding this, complete unity. So the Kabbalah is Kether, the crown, pure, unmanifest divine will, the point of emanation. In the Tarot, the magician is focused willpower, conscious active initiation and manifestation. In Pythagoreanism, the monad I talked about, the originator of all numbers in existence, absolute unity. In Taoism, the one, undifferentiated unity, the primordial state before duality. In Hinduism, Ekam Sat, the singular ultimate reality, Brahman, the source of all truth. So we see this in a lot of places, this whole understanding of the one. The number one, therefore, is consistently viewed as the primary, foundational, and unifying force, the initial thought or will that sets creation into motion. Anything you want to say on that before I get into the etymology?
No, that's beautiful. It's just, it always amazes me how you see the same things all around the world. Like if you learn the archetypes of Kabbalah and the Zodiac, the keys to all of the world religions open to you. It all makes sense. And that's what I really love about it.
It's really beautiful when you start to, for me, being heavy into Christianity for a long time, wasn't born into it, but I became born again, and that was a real experience. That was incredible. But I went into religion instead of spirituality and ended up in a real legalistic type of framework of belief. And it just wasn't conducive at all for understanding the rest of the world. It really kept you in these 66 books over and over and over again, reading them. For 15 years, I was in this. And although a lot of it's beautiful and symbolic now in my cross-referencing, I see, wink, wink, the same story showing up 2000s before Christ, years before Christ was even on earth. So we know that these stories are just being regurgitated through time, through archetypes.
Yeah. And I think, if we see these archetypes all around the world, and everyone around the world agrees there is one. I mean, even the monotheists and the polytheists
Yeah.
will agree that there is a source, there is a highest of the high. I
Mm.
mean, regardless of what the exact characteristics of what that is, we can all agree we all come from one. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. When I went out of those 66 books, man, I began to have I just want to share anyone who's quote unquote waking up from religion or waking up from a harsh, strong religious background where you weren't allowed, to really read and these other things, and they were condemned. You just begin to, I think, appreciate the 66 books more in that they really do point to magic. The entire Bible, and this is going to freak people out, but I'm just telling you, probably not our listeners, but the entire Bible is magic. And symbology is very deep in how to be the magician. You just got to know how to read it and where to look. But the history of the word magician and magic is a journey across many continents and countries and centuries, making a profound shift from a respected religious title to a term for either occult sorcery or parlor entertainment. So the origin is an ancient Persian word meaning priesthood. The root of the word comes from the name of an ancient religious caste. Ancient Greek means magos, and this is the source term. It specifically referred to the priests of Zoroastrianism in ancient Persia, which were the three kings. We three kings of Orient are. That's the three kings of the Bible. They were Zoroastrians. I don't know how to say that word properly, but they were associated with wisdom, astrology, and the interpretation of dreams. In Latin, magus, plural meaning magi, borrowed directly from the Greek. This term is used in the Bible to later describe the wise men, the magi, who visited the infant Jesus at the stage. The connotation was of wisdom and religious authority. Then there was an evolution from Magus priest, an ancient Persian term, to sorcerer, as the term moved westward and lost its specific religious context. Its meaning became broader and was associated with the exotic, magical practices, and dangerous practices of the occult. And I was like, well, when did that happen? I was digging. And I didn't have time to go down that road, but it'd be really interesting to find out how that word was so corrupted.
I mean, it's
In
got to be
one,
Christianity.
yeah, some of it for sure. But in the old French, magicien, magicien, this is the immediate precursor to the English word, and it developed the common French suffix ien, or in English, CIAN, which is on the magician card on the Waite deck, meaning one who practices. By this time, the term had largely taken on the meaning of sorcerer, wizard, or necromancer, or someone who uses supernatural powers, often for illicit or dangerous purposes. The word was adopted in the Middle Ages to be magician, magician, and English, of course, around the late 14th century. Its usage was synonymous with the French magician and in the Latin magus in its latter, less benevolent sense. Period saw a clear division between the sacred and the profane uses of magic. Final evolution of the term occurred relatively recently, shifting away from occultic practices entirely. In the 18th and the 19th centuries, during the Enlightenment and Victorian eras, the practice of occult magic waned in public perception, while theatrical illusion and stagecraft gained popularity. The word magician became the standard term for a stage performer who creates illusions using sleight of hand, misdirection, in theatrical devices and deception, like Houdini or modern performers. Today's current definition defines a magician as an entertainer who performs magic tricks rather than someone possessing supernatural powers or connecting to ether, the divine, to then manifest on earth. The word magician has completed a full circle in its perceived power. So, from religious power, right? Ancient magi to occult power, sorcerer or wielder of black magic, medieval period to theatrical power, a performer who creates the illusion of power, bringing it to the modern period. So, other names for the magician: wizard came out in Middle English, meaning wise man. Wizard, Wysard, which means scholarly or learned. The mage, in Latin, magus, meaning arcane. Magus, ancient Persian Latin, meaning priestly, venerable. Sorcerer, sorceress, one who casts lots, innate and powerful. Have you ever heard of this word? Thaumaturge. It's Greek.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
battle mage, right?
Yeah, it's Greek for
Or
wonder
storm.
worker, one who performs miracles. Or archmage, fantasy, literary, a leader of master level, mage or sorcerer, a dominant leading archetype, and theurgist, which is Greek, one who performs divine or benevolent magic. So see, all these other words came out, but the initial meaning really is Kether, right? Availability
Absolutely.
to
Like
tap
the
that which is above
right.
to that which is below. He's the channel. He's the bridge. Magician is the bridge. So, and then there was the whole thing, and I won't go deep into this, but the archetype of the shaman and the similarities and differences between the shaman and the magician. And I kept coming across the shaman as I was reading, and the magician. And it was like, well, God, they're not really that much alike. But the shaman is often seen as tribal and indigenous, and he or she operates within a traditional, often hunter-gatherer or agrarian society, agriculture society. And the practice is communal, focused on immediate well-being of the tribe, including healing the sick, guaranteeing successful hunts, protecting the community for spiritual harm. Their knowledge is often acquired through direct, sometimes grueling experience and initiation. And I wanted to read this, bear with me, from Don Jose Ruiz's book, The Wisdom of the Shaman, what the ancient masters can teach us about love and life. And I'm going to tie it in to the magician here. But in the forward section, I do not own this information. It says this: imagine being alive hundreds, even thousands of years ago. You're sitting at the edge of a fire at the dawn of human memory. Others are gathered around the warm glow of the flames with you, and you are all bathed in the light of the sacred circle. Leaning forward into the light, one person begins to speak. A log cracks, sending a burst of embers into the dark sky. The story begins. Once there was a woman who found herself lost in the desert. She wandered for days under a sky heavy with clouds. Folded in layers of darkness, she stumbled across the landscape, her hands empty and her skin cold. Finally exhausted, she sank to her knees and turned her face to the heavens. There she saw that the clouds had opened, revealing a wash of bright stars. She stared up at them. Each one, she thought, has sent its light to me. The glow of each star, even those that died millennial ago, it's reaching me right now. But what has the light reached? What am I? What is the truth of me? You see in your mind's eye the light of the stars and feel the lesson in the words settle into your heart. The story has brought a reflection of the truth. It has opened you to the idea that you are not your roles, your desires, your destiny, or even your body. The truth is that we have no idea what we are. All we know is that we are. The truth often needs a mirror, and sometimes we cannot see the truth itself, only its reflection. Since ancient times, teachers, masters, and shamans have reflected the truth through storytelling. It is perhaps the oldest form of teaching, and while the words may disappear as soon as the story is over, the lessons they teach us can last for a lifetime. As we move through the world, the mind tells a million stories a day. The mind is tied to Mercury greatly here. For instance, I could put two random words on a page, attic and proud, and already your mind has gone to work. You found a connection, perhaps several, and the stories are beginning to send seeds into the earth so they can flower. We can't help it. Our minds are storytelling machines. Because of this, we could say that stories are like an element of the mind, just as earth, water, air, and fire are elements of the body. Like the primordial elements, stories can cleanse, burn, reveal, or create, and the lessons they teach us can be used to build bridges, make heartfelt connections, and reveal powerful ideas that lead us in the direction of truth. While stories are part of our dream of reality and we give them their due, we must remember they are only reflections of the truth, not truth itself. As you will soon learn, the truth you seek is inside of you. And these stories, as well as your own story, can only point you to that truth. So I think that he grabs something there that it's pure, raw potential. You are pure, raw potential. It exists inside of you. And this card shows you this. With the white, with him standing there in his authority, there is a story to be told. And you are that story, right? You're the story that,
Through the will of the magician, you decide what you do with the pure potential and what your story becomes.
right. The magician tends to be more urban and scholarly, where the shaman is tribal and indigenous. Like the shaman's more for the good of the tribe, whereas the magician, I think it's more like, well, scholarly comes from Old English scholare, meaning student, which originated from the Latin word scola, meaning school, and ly, which is an Old English suffix that can turn adjectives into adverbs, denoting qualities or relations related to a scholar. The magician scholar is developed within more complex, literate, and often hierarchical societies like schools of thought, ancient Egypt, medieval Europe, or modern esoteric orders such as the Golden Dawn or the Masons, or like their work is often personal. Whereas the shaman's more the tribe. There's still this knowing and there's this understanding from pure raw potential coming from you. But in the magician, it tends to get more serious and focused on self-perfection, acquisition of that occult knowledge sitting on the table, like going deeper into what is the chalice, what is it, what's water, what's feminine, what's yin, and everything that goes with that.
I would say the main difference is cultural, right? Because the methods are essentially the same. They're tapping into their intuition, they're performing rituals. The core philosophy is essentially the same. All is one, all is spirit. There's spirit in the rocks, there's spirit in everything.
Yeah.
Really, the main difference is cultural. They were seen as learned people in the West. They were often court mages. You know, not
Exactly.
everyone knew how to read and write. So if you could read and write, you were upper class, that kind of thing. The main difference is cultural.
Right. Because a lot of the learning of the magician, of the mage, is rooted in written texts and complex symbolic systems, like the
Right.
Tarot and Kabbalah and esoteric writings. Like, it's all these layers that the magician needs to learn, and it's all on that table. And all those things are supported by the table. Have you read much about what the symbology of a table means? Just curious, because I haven't. But it's interesting. There is a table represented there in the Waite deck.
I guess, I mean, if I would have to intuit it, the table is the place of action. I'm saying very similar to Earth,
Yeah.
although the pentacle is also Earth. Or maybe it speaks to a greater plane that the Earth
Yeah, I see it as brown. I can see
sits
that
within.
tie. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. I thought you were done. I think you cut out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was done.
Yeah,
I was done.
I see the brown on the table on that card, symbolic of Earth for sure. And the four legs, meaning there is stability to be found if you take these tools and build
Oh,
upon the table.
again, the cross, the equal armed cross is a symbol of Malkuth, has 4 points.
Yes, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. I'm going to close on the shaman and magician. And I said, I believe that although both the shaman and the magician have their tools, such as the medicine bag or the four elements is represented on the table, chalice, cup, water, pentacles, earth, swords, air, and wands, fire, they each have different ways of channeling the craft. Shaman serves as a mediator, a bridge between the world of ancestors and the earth. The magician, although I'm certain would help you, is more focused on, he's like, you need to help yourself, right? Like, I can see him say, perfect yourself, know who you are. And in the process, you know thyself, and you have no excess. You'll honor those words above the Oracle Delphi's door, right? Know thyself, no excess.
Yeah, I
You
would
be
add
you
the
become.
well, we've been talking that what goes with that. We've been talking about Bina this whole time, and I've neglected to mention that the planet attributed to Bina is Saturn, and you were
Yeah.
just talking about discipline.
Yes. You become whole, integrated, and healed when you know thyself and you do not have excess or know when to. I don't think it's, no excess ever. I think it's the wisdom of knowing how much excess you can have to do
Right.
and create what you want to do. Like, there's a
I agree.
balance there. You become grounded and stable upon the earth, and then you can begin your journey to the next card. Like, we can't go anywhere until we create, right? There's like no life until it comes out of your head and it moves out into action. Otherwise, it's up in the ether. It's too much Neptune. You got to bring it down and ground it. There's a book called The Fool's Journey Through the Tarot Major Arcana by Noel Eastwood. He's a friend of mine, an amazing author, psychoanalyst, and a mentor and mystic. And I just want to read this out of his book. It's not long, but I like the way he writes in The Fool's Journey Through the Tarot Major Arcana, like a story where it's one of his 5-book series on the Fool's Journey through the Tarot. And he does it on each of the 4 items represented on the table too. Journey through the swords, journey through the cups, journey through the wands. It's pretty cool. But he says this, page 5, I do not own this information. Leaving behind all he knows, he's talking about the fool, and ignorant to the consequences of his actions, he begins his life's journey. Remember, we just did the fool, and the fool isn't the magician. Right? Leaving,
But it is
yeah,
also a path to the divine,
it is
because
a
the
path
fool
to
connects
divine.
to Kether also.
That's
And I would
correct.
mention so does the high priestess. That's the path of pure intuition, the moon.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's really good, Anthony. Along the winding path, through the dark, gloomy forest, he encounters a magician, the master of the four elements, Mage Hermes, the emperor's magician and alchemist, smiles knowingly and asks the fool for his bag. Then, in grand fashion, the magician raises one arm to the skies, and with the other he points to the ground. With a flash of power, the bag opens. Recognizing his own youthful folly, in the fool, the magician generously gifts him something very special. The magician draws from the bag a magical sword, air, clarity of thinking, a flaming wand, fire, spirit of adventure, a rare coin, earth, steadfastness, and reliability, and a turquoise cup, water, passion, and love. Staring in awe at the magician and his gifts, yet ignorant of their worth, the fool stammers, "Thank you, my lord." The magician leaned towards the fool. "These gifts will guide your journey. Learn their worth and use them wisely. With discipline and practice, you will find yourself a master and the turning of the wheel of life, and no longer in need of these talismans, at which time you yourself may gift them to another fool starting out on his journey. Like us all, the fool is yet to realize that understanding our gifts takes dedicated, selfless effort. We must all first earn the right before we can wield these gifts with skill and wisdom. This is the fool's first experience with power. Yet little does he know that wishes do not a wise man make. I'm going to read that again. This is the fool's first experience with power. Yet little does he know that wishes do not a wise man make. He gathers up his bag, and with a whistle on his lips and a skip and a step, he continues along the way. And then he goes on and he meets the other people in the major arcana. But I thought that was pretty cool, the way that he did that. And
Yeah.
ending with, you got to tap it. You got to tap
Yeah.
it.
The part I thought was most interesting is when he said, one day you won't need these tools anymore,
Yeah.
these external tools. Like, to me, that made me think of a real life example of, like, for me in meditation, when you first start out meditating, there's all these different exercises you can go to. There's so many different exercises. But eventually, once you get good at it, you don't need any of those exercises. You can just do it. You can just tune
Yeah.
into the vibration. You can just slip into that feeling. One day you don't need these external tools. You are the tool.
Yeah. You are the channel. That's the magician. Exactly. You are the magician. You are the channeler of as above, so below, bringing down Kether and grounding it on earth. It's not the high priestess, which we have next at all, right? It's interesting that the deck opens after the fool with Mercury and not, the high priestess.
Because
More
the
representative.
masculine, because Shakma is two. You have
Yep.
to have that initial will, force, and then form comes. That's 1, 2, 3.
Yes. That's an excellent grab and tie. You're right.
To to put the icing on the cake of everything we just learned about the magician, here's a real life encounter with the magician. I mean, that's what I love about this kind of thing. You don't have to just read it from a book and believe that this is what a magician is. You can go into deep meditation. You can design your own ritual, or you can look at the ritual of magicians from the past, and you can meet the magician yourself. That's basically what Aleister Crowley did in the Vision and the Voice. He did what he scryed the Enochian aethers.
Yeah.
Scrying is just a word that means to get visions, often with a crystal ball or any method, really. And the aethers, the 30 Enochian aethers, it's more or less, it's very, very similar to the Kabbalah. It's more or less a different map of the same territory. It comes from a different magical system, but the people who write about the 30 Enochian Aethers, like Crowley, are constantly making Kabbalistic comparisons. So that's why I say it really seemed like it's just a different map of the same territory. And so if we're in the territory of the Kabbalah, we've been talking this whole time, the mage is on a specific path, and that happens to be correlate with the third Enochian Aether. So what follows is Crowley's vision of the third Enochian Aether from what is called Vision and Voice, Liber 418. And buckle up, it's a little crazy,
Wow.
like psychedelic mushroom trip level crazy.
Yeah.
It starts off horrifying, and then a nice young lady is going to come and clear some things up for us. So buckle up.
Okay. All right.
And by the way, this isn't the whole account. The whole account is pretty long. So I took a bunch of excerpts and stitched them together in a way that makes sense for brevity's sake.
Okay. And to confirm, Crawley did this while scrying or in a meditative state.
Yes, this is his vision of the Magus.
And what year was this? Like 1930s, probably?
I think it was like 1909 or 1910, around there.
That was right after he left the Golden Dawn.
Right.
He left the Golden Dawn in 1903. Okay. So he was on his own, pretty much.
Yep.
That's what I need to know.
His vision. It is the figure of the Magus of the Tarot, and in his right arm, the torch of the flames blazing upwards. In his left, the cup of poison, a cataract into hell, and upon his head, the evil talisman, blasphemy and blasphemy and blasphemy, in the form of a circle. That is the greatest blasphemy of all. On his feet hath he the scythes and swords of sickles, daggers, knives, every sharp thing, a millionfold, and all in one. And this Magus casteth forth by the might of his four weapons, veil after veil, 1,000 shining colors, ripping and tearing the aether so that it is like saws and broken teeth in the face of a young girl, and disruption and madness. There is a horrible grinding sound, maddening. This is the mill in which the universal substance, which is ether, was ground down into matter. The seer prayeth that a cloud may come between him and the sun, so that he may shut out the terror of this vision. And he is a fire, he is terribly athirst, and no help can come to him. For the shoe stone blazes ever with the fury and torment, and the blackness and the stench of human flesh. The bowels of little children are torn out and thrust into his mouth, and poison is dropped into his eyes. And Lilith, a black monkey crawling with filth, running with open sores, an eye torn out, eaten of worms, her teeth rotten, her nose eaten away, her mouth a putrid mass of green slime, her dugs dropping and cancerous, clings to him, kisses him. Kill me, kill me. There is a mocking voice. Thou art become immortal. Thou was looked upon the face of the magician, and thou hast not beheld it because of his magic veils. The shoe stone is all black and corrupt. Oh, filth, filth, filth. I was saved from that horror by a black shining triangle with the apex upwards that came upon the face of the sun. And now the shoe stone is all clear and beautiful again. The pure pale gold of a fair maiden's hair, and the green of her girdle, and the soft blue of her eyes. Thus she appeareth in the aether, adorned with flowers and gems. It seems that she hath incarnated herself upon earth, and that she will appear manifest in a certain office and functions in the temple. There is another girl behind her, with sparkling eyes, mischievous, a smile showing beautiful white teeth, an ideal Spanish girl, but fair, very vivacious. Only her head is visible, and now it is veiled by a black sun, casting forth dull rays of black and gold. Then the disk of the sun is a pair of balances, held steady, and twined about the central pole of the balance is the little green poisonous snake with a long forked tongue rapidly darting. And the angel that hath spoken with me before saith to me, the eye of his benignancy is open, therefore veileth thine eyes from the vision. Manfully hast thou endured, yet hast thou been man. Thou hast not endured. And hast thou been wholly that which thou art? Thou shouldst have been caught up in the full vision that is unspeakable for horror. And thou shouldst have beheld the face of the magician that thou hast not been able to behold. Of him from whom issue forth the severities that are upon Malkuth, earth. And his name is Misericordia Dei. And because he is the dyad, thou mayest yet understand in two ways. The first way, the mercy of God, is that which Jehovah showed to the Amalekites. There we go. The first way, the mercy of God, is that which Jehovah showed to the Amalekites. And the second way is utterly beyond thine understanding, for it is upright, and thou knowest nothing but the averse. Until wisdom shall inform thine understanding, and upon the base of the ultimate triangle arise the smooth point. Veil therefore thine eyes, for that thou canst not master the aether, unless the mystery match its unless thy mystery match its mystery, and seal up thy mouth, for thou canst not master the voice of the aether, save only by silence. And thou shalt give the sign of the mother, for Babylon is thy fortress against the iniquity of the abyss. What do you think of that, Kate?
Wow, I want to know how he wrote all that while under some meditative trance. Like, how did that literally, like, first of all, the practical application comes to mind. Like, I'm trying to visualize him doing this because it's terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact method they use. It could have been automatic writing, or he could have been dictating this to someone else. Those are the two ways it's typically done.
Yeah, like Edgar Casey. Now, his wife could have done it very much because she was really involved with him. So that could have happened too. So it's interesting, someone who is so damned by a lot of people, which, you know, he did some crazy shit. There's no doubt about that. But he mentions angels. He
Yeah.
mentions
And
an
I think
angel.
also for how conceited he can be, even admittedly, he calls himself conceited, and it shows in his work sometimes. In this work, he's essentially told, you are not worthy for this aether. She literally told him,
Yeah.
the way of understanding is beyond thine because it is upright and you are averse. He said, you are not worthy. And that's why he got the horrors that he got when he tried to access that aether.
Yeah, and I just talked about that earlier, and I can't remember exactly where I said that, but trained adept practices magic. Wink, wink. Like, trained is the key word. Like, you just can't go into this ether space unprepared.
Yeah,
And
you gotta at least know something
and
like that.
misuse and misuse of it, like misuse of fire, earth, air, water, you know, misuse of communication, misuse of our creativity, misuse of our emotional system. See what I'm saying? Misuse of our practical energy on earth. And it sounds like that's what he was being
Yeah.
ramboozled for. Man,
Yeah,
that was
and
rough. That
yeah,
was
and the
rough. He
quote,
must have been terrified. I would have been
yeah, I mean, he said, "Kill me, kill me." I
Yeah.
mean, that's something I've said on a really bad mushroom trip. That's why I said it like that. And the
Well,
quote, what are you saying? What were you saying?
there's a lot to be said about psychedelics and the Eleusinian mysteries and all of that stuff, and
Yeah,
like
it's all the same.
how much was going down with psychedelics, and just trying to open their minds and open portals, because it's insatiable. I was listening to Caroline Miss, who's a great teacher on The Magician, and she's like, it's that thing in us that just has to know, and wants to know the unknown and wants to go further, and we'll press boundaries, is what I'm saying. And we'll do things that maybe perhaps we shouldn't do. Thus, again, there's this requirement, like Aleister Crowley was very much known, and you probably know this more than I do, but for ceremonial magic, more than Arthur Waite, who was known for his mystical and spiritual approach to it. So I don't think Arthur Waite had these types of experiences. Maybe he did. I don't know. I haven't read that much about him, but Crowley seemed to teeter on the darker side of life and the darker writings, at least.
Yeah,
From
but
what
as we learned, it's all one.
True. We do need both sides.
Actually, I had an interesting a paragraph on darkness and light. Now that you bring it up, it was with the Hebrew letter stuff, but it's kind of abstract at this point. You mind if I read it?
Yeah, no, read it
Yeah.
for sure.
It's from Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg. He says, just as darkness exists below light in the sense of concealment of light from consciousness, so darkness exists above light in the sense of the absolute consciousness above all possible revelation of light. In this world, our relation to this higher darkness is only through simple faith. In the future, we shall come to know this darkness just as we know light. Then the darkness itself will shine with the brilliance incomparable to that of any known light. This is an even deeper understanding of the
Hmm.
open side of the Beth Hebrew letter. In the future, it will be simultaneously open and unknown and dark and closed, known and light as the final mem, both aspects at the level of divinity. And I think the symbol Crowley saw, the shining black and gold sun, is exactly this concept of the darkness shining like light, the light and darkness being as one.
Mm-hmm. That was really a good quote. Very interesting. I'm not familiar with that rabbi, but that lends a lot of light.
It was just hard finding any book like that that will explain the spiritual meanings of the Hebrew letters. His was the only one I could find.
Mm-hmm. For this section, towards the end here, we're going to talk about just some key tarot authors and contributors on the magician card itself and just various writings. And then also talk about reversed, what the card means reversed, upside down, or what some would call the shadow. The Smith-Waite is the most popular deck in the world to date. And I looked up A.E. Waite, who created this deck. I don't want to go deep into him at all, which you could, but I looked at his chart, and he was born with the Sun and Mercury in the 9th house. So capable of being in Libra, capable of being a born negotiator of higher knowledge, 9th house, very diplomatic, matter-of-fact manner. In his Pisces 2nd house, the values of money, has Neptune, who is the Lord of Pisces, present, and a Pisces moon, which would note a connection very closely with the yin, the feminine, the more spiritual, the mother archetype, female, and perhaps at times high spiritual breakthroughs, as well as disillusion, fog, trickery, manipulation, and deceit, which can be all lower aspects of Neptune and Pisces in the 2nd house, right? Got to be careful of that. But he was born in Brooklyn, New York, 1857, raised in England after his father's early death. He was a poet, a writer, scholarly mystic, often supported himself through his freelance writing, and a deep occult researcher. I really identify with this guy big time. I have a packed ninth house, and having your son in the ninth house, you're pulled towards
No,
philosophy. And
that makes sense, though. Sorry.
no, you're
Sorry.
fine.
I'm trying to find a good place to jump in, but it makes so much sense because you're more intuitive, and then him and Crowley had a fight because he was more on the Mercury logical side, and that's the side I lean towards.
I know that's kind of like our friendship through the years has been. And I really think it's a really good example, though, of how opposites can attract and help each other, and the polarities are needed because there'll be times I'll bounce an idea off for you, or we'll be talking, and I'll be like, "Well, what do you think?" And you always bring in mm, a more air intellectual, not so much feeling sensing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Not always, but at times. I mean, I can go there too. Obviously, okay, got my PhD, man. Well, hopefully, my dissertation's before the review board, so hopefully they'll let me get my degree. But with all my water up there in the ninth, I'm definitely more prone to the mystic and the spiritual aspects, and more like a shaman, like wanting to see people healed and whole, and not so much like the magician. I see myself more like the high priestess. You see yourself more like the magician, I bet. Not that you
yeah,
can't go there either, because you need both, right? We need
yeah.
all the cards. But if we were to lean, you're definitely air yang, and I'm water yin.
Yeah.
And
We
there it
all have our
is.
strengths and weaknesses.
That's right. Yeah. So he did a lot of research. He spent years studying occult topics at the British Museum Library. Like, oh my God, send me there yesterday. Can you imagine going and reading these books?
Yeah, I'm gonna quote some stuff, some of the John D. and Edward Kelly stuff I'm gonna quote later is there, and their crystal balls and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
in the
yeah.
British Museum.
Well, he focused on Kabbalah, Kabbalism, alchemy, and ceremonial magic. And of course, he joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in 1888 to 1903. He was very influential in occult society, mysticism, spirituality, but there was a split. He became the leader of the Golden Dawn with his focus on Christian mysticism and spiritual illumination. It led to a split with members who favored the more practical ceremonial magic, like Aleister Crowley. So there was this, not everybody was on the same page with the way that we use ether. This is all I have to say. You know, Crowley joined the Golden Dawn in 1898. Check out these eights and nines, huh, Anthony?
Yeah,
When Samuel Liddell McGregory Mathers was leader of the Golden Dawn, and his focus was on the spiritual initiation process and ritualistic magic. He also believed in equal opportunities for men and women to pursue their spiritual growth.
yeah.
And
All
Alistair
your lessons.
Mathers had many disagreements. And in 1903, the Golden Dawn closed its doors. So Waite says this about the magician. He says the as above, so below posture and the tools on the table symbolize having all resources at one's disposal, to manifest will. And from the pictorial key to the tarot, he said he is the unity of the human will in its own plane with the divine will. The realization of either in the other, which you said earlier, you alluded to that. The realization of the either in the other, all is one, right? One is
Right.
all and all is one. Reading from Understanding the Tarot deck, Arthur Waite's pictorial keys, um, he sees, I would say, there's a requirement here by A.E. Waite of action. he repeats it over and over in his works, that there has to be movement. And so I'll close with that. And then Aleister Crowley, who you know very well, 1875 to 1947. He was born Edward Alexander Crowley in 1875. He, of course, did the Thoth deck. He was born to a wealthy, devout family belonging to the exclusive brethren, which I didn't go into, but do you know anything about the exclusive brethren?
They're some kind of Baptist, Presbyterian, evangelical type of thing.
Yeah, man. Well, he definitely rebelled against that. His mother reportedly called him the Beast 666, a moniker later he embraced. He joined the Golden Dawn 1898, like I said, and he was really into ceremonial magic and tried to bring in a lot of his own ideas, and they weren't having it at all. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah. But Mathers, as you mentioned before, seemed like a big influence on Crowley, as Crowley referenced Mathers a lot and spoke very highly of him.
Did he? Yeah, well, they fought a lot. There were fights, a lot of fights. But you know what? As long as, I mean, you can have fights with people. I mean, are they really just disagreements and banter? I don't know how deep it went. I don't know what fights and what that really
Yeah.
looked like. I didn't go
And
that
that,
deep.
and also we're talking about art when we're talking about magic too. And so there's also a level of separating the art from an artist. Like even if Crowley may be a piece of shit, if he has the most beautiful description of Mercury Thoth I've ever heard, I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, it would have been interesting just to be in those circles. God, man, wouldn't that have been crazy to be around that time and just to be, because
Yeah.
they were all
There's a
together.
lot of drama too, though. We wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah,
They were
that's
all
true. Because we
fucking
don't
each
do
other's
drama.
wives
No, we
and
don't do
shit.
that shit. We don't do drama. There's no drama llama here. No
Yeah.
way. Can't do it. We couldn't have continued doing this if there were. So. All right. So, the Book of the Law in 1904 was written. What, and you quoted from what book was it? That
Got quoted
when you gave the description of him scrying.
Oh, that was from The Vision and the Voice, but I am going to get into the story of how the Book of the Law came to be in a little bit, how Crowley acted as a magician and his wife was actually an unexpected seer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that was in 1904. He wrote that in Cairo, Egypt. Claimed to have received the foundational text of his philosophy, I quote, Liber al vel legis, the book of the law, dictated by a discarnate entity named Awas.
Yep.
Thelema, he formed, right? Based on that text, founded the
Yep.
religion and
And
philosophical system.
Iwas was a messenger of Horus.
I've never heard of Iwas until
Yeah,
today.
this Iwas is unique to Crowley. It wasn't a pre-existing thing.
Right. In his religion and philosophical system of Thelema, centered on do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. Correct?
Yes. Now he's talking about the concept of the true will, in which he says, love is the law, love under will. And that means your true will is rooted in love, Kether, as I explained earlier. It doesn't mean just do whatever you want.
Yeah, but then how does he justify some of the shit he does? You know what I
People don't
mean?
always practice what they preach. Humans are
It's
flawed.
kind of hard to take people seriously, man. And I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I expect that because I'm certainly not. But there's real strong, overt behavior antithetical of someone who is like the magician. under control. I see control in the magician. I don't see
That's
anarchy.
yeah. That's why he got denied when he tried to access that aether. He just got hell, and the kind young woman told him, "You are not ready to master this aether."
Yeah, I would imagine going in there would require you to have a lot under your belt, so to speak. And notice where the tools are. They're under
Yeah,
the belt in
humans
the
are very
Smith-Waite card.
mixed.
But
It
there's
can be a
one,
very mixed bag.
it's interesting in the tarot card, there's one item that's above his belt. Do you know what it is? It's
No,
the
in the
cup.
weight deck.
It's the cup. It's the chalice. Ah, it's the Holy Grail. It's the feminine. Yeah. There's something there to that. And the cup, it could have been a small cup on a table. They did a chalice, very tall cup, very eager cup, ready to receive. All right, I'm going to move on. Okay, so what was this about? I put Ask Anthony. He founded the Esoteric Order A, and it's got 3 dots, and then A and 3 dots
Yes, that
in
is the
1907.
Argentum Astra something.
Okay. He later
It
became the
was
head of the
different
British
than his
branch.
other. Yeah, it was different than his other organization, Thelema, in that the AA focused. It wasn't really a group-based thing. It focused more on a mentor-student relationship, and it was basically supposed to be
Wow.
an accelerated path to what they would call enlightenment and the higher stages. And I'm glad that you bring it up because I'm gonna mention them later. They used to have a regular publication. I don't remember if it was monthly or quarterly or whatever it was, called the Equinox, and it was this giant tome, like 300 pages each time, of a collection of poems from people in the AA and interesting things about other magicians. Like they would have John Dee and Edward Kelly's work in there. They would have things like poems from Crowley. They would have, I'm going to quote later, he he writes a little bit about how the Book of the Law came to be.
Hmm.
It's kind of almost like a magazine, but it was fucking gigantic.
Wow. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you and looking at everything he's written, and I'm just like, wow, what a mind.
Yeah.
Your Capricorn had to be out of control to be able to harness, to write down, to found orders. Like, that's not a small thing. There's a lot of work that I would
Yes.
imagine goes into that. He must have had to have had an intellect off the chain. It was his bestial urges that was his downfall.
Yeah. That's
Um,
what is humankind.
yeah, he
And
didn't
now,
get it under control.
yeah. And now that I mentioned it before I forget, the poem that I started off with that I forgot to cite was published in the Equinox. It is an
Oh
English
yeah,
version. It is an English version of a poem from Eliphas Levi. He was a French occultist. He was the
yep.
one to draw the original Baphomet that everyone knows, that image. And I don't know who the exact author is. Usually each section, it'll tell you who the author is, but this section just says adapted from Eliphas Levi's version of the famous hymn. And the version was in French. I tried to look up what famous hymn they were referencing, but I couldn't find anything.
Do me a favor, Anthony, and email our email for all things esoteric. Your citing of your books that you're using. I'm going to go ahead and put all this in the
Oh,
description with my
oh,
books.
awesome. Yeah, they're all PDFs, free PDFs because they're like over 100 years old now, some
All
of
right.
them.
Well, if you want to send me the links, then they can, if they're free,
Yeah,
other people can access that. That's great. That'll
I
all
would
be in
love
the
to.
description. Yeah, great. Just because I already got one started for mine. Okay. So what is this? Later, he became the head of the British branch of the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. Is that another order or is that an existing
Yes,
order?
that's an existing order, the OTO. the story there is the existing leader of the OTO went up to Crowley and he basically told Crowley, the writings you've already wrote make it clear that you are our prophet. And then he became the leader of the OTO.
Oh my God, what men
That's the
do.
story there. It gets a little crazy. The rumor, or I think I've read Crowley what's the word, euphemize this or allude to this himself, that in the OTO you climb up the rank, the tree. That's where your rank is. It's correlated to a sphere on the tree of life. And I believe I've read, or at least I'll say the rumor is, the ritual to attain the rank of Binah, you must show that you can be ultimately passive, which
Mm.
includes anal penetration in front of a group.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a lot of, see, that's some of the ceremonial ritualistic stuff that gets
Like
crazy.
you could show passivity in a bunch of other ways ceremonially. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that.
Well, we should, talk about all the male rulers that were around during when all of these orders all around our world came to pass. And I mean, the things that they said people needed to do that involved naked females. I just don't know why it would involve a naked female, but, all
Well,
kinds of things.
they the explanation for that is that they're trying to arouse the energy of men to use it in ritual, because sexual energy is creative energy, is magical energy. So if there's a naked woman in the room, the energy of all the males is going to be super heightened, and the job of the priest or leader of the ritual is to harness that.
I understand. But you know how much that was misused and abused, and people
I'm
were.
sure it was.
So I just speak for all the women, which is, when I mention the Rider-Waite Smith deck, I'll say Smith-Waite because I'm going to talk about her in a few minutes. Pamela, like a lot of women at that time, just did not get recognition. I mean, not even that, respect. Respect as an equal human being, not better, not higher, but next to the side of male. Not
Yeah.
dominated, not underneath, next to the side of male to be a help meet to one another. It's
Well, I
gone
will
south.
say some archaeologists will tell you, if you go far back enough before agriculture, when everyone was hunter gathering,
Yeah.
women dominated society. It was
Yes.
matriarchal society. All One night, all the men in the tribe would have sex with the same women, and then everyone's child was everyone's child. And the perspective when East met West was, that's crazy. You don't know who your son is. And the response from the hunter gatherer was, you only love your child. We love all of the children in the tribe equally. And also the archaeology from this time shows that there was far less war. You find almost no
Yes.
skeletons with uh, buried with weapons, far less injuries from war. So if you go far back enough, essentially the idea is agriculture created personal property, which created war, which created a male dominated society.
Now that would be a good podcast to study and go down that road to wet the whistle of people that want to look at that. I think that's something that I'd definitely be interested in doing. On top of all the other stuff we want to do, but that would really be interesting just to go way, way back. I'm sure there's people who have written on this, like on the divine feminine. I've heard of this, I've come across it, and I
Yeah,
have several books that cross reference this type of understanding, but I don't have an
yeah,
actual book on it.
the yeah, we got to find books too, but predictive history is a great reference that he's been talking about it recently. The Professor Yang, I think, out
Oh
of
my
China.
God, he's amazing. Yeah, pitch him, man.
Yeah,
We
it
should.
was a whole culture shock just to learn that you're allowed to say things like that in China. Like, I guess China isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, right? Okay, I'm going to hop on the bus of Lady Frida Harris quickly, 1878 to 1962, who was born Margaret Frida Bloxam, accomplished English artist known for her modernist style in use of complex color theory. She became interested in thelema and occult studies later in life, and she was an initiate of the OTO order and met Crowley in 37, became his magical pupil. And even though she did not know the tarot, she was commissioned by Crowley to illustrate his new deck in 38. She worked under his detailed instruction for over 5 years, finishing the 78 card paintings in 1943. So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, wow, I didn't dig down into her. I just did a brief overview, but wow, that's impressive.
Yeah,
Like, how many of you can say, I know for me, like, I took 5 years to do something. And I recently, and I'm not saying it just to say it, but I recently did that. I did it took me 5.5 years because of COVID and injury and a family crisis I had, the family member, to get
yep.
finish my course studies. So it is a lot to stay focused on something when life is happening, because we still get sick. We still got to pay the bills. We still got to clean our toilets. We still have to take care of our relationships. We still have to try to eat not junk shit food. We still have to put gas in the car. Like all the practical things that we need to do to create, to be.
And
It's a lot.
and she was determined to paint the picture a little more. This was towards the end of Crowley's life, and he wasn't really writing much anymore, and he was kind of a curmudgeon. And when she came to him to ask, him to teach her, a few times he said no, like I have no interest. But she was determined, and he was poor, so she
Ah,
offered him a bunch of money and made it happen.
that's
She
amazing.
happened to be either the wife or an ex-wife at that time of a British member of parliament.
Oh, wow. Wow. That says a lot. All right. Well, I know that I really appreciate you knowing the backdrop to a lot of things I prepared that I didn't know, and it just works out perfect because
Yeah.
I know you love this deck. And when I met you, I had never even heard of this deck because I met you through your tarot page that you had at the time that was active. And it's so crazy how now we often refer to these decks in our podcast together. So it's pretty cool. Known as one of the most symbolically complex decks ever created. And I would have to say that because when you've read and you've shown me the cards, we've talked about them in the past, that is the truth. And I want you to add to this as soon as I'm done here. It is heavily influenced by Hermetic Kabbalah, Egyptian mythology, astrology, and alchemy, reflecting Crowley's synthesis of esoteric systems. And I love all those things, don't you? Like all those
Yeah.
things just ring my bells. Crowley and Harris fundamentally altered several aspects of the traditional deck, renaming several major arcana cards. Strength became lust. I want to talk about this, Anthony. Temperance became art, and judgment became the aeon, as in like the Nag Hammadi aeons. Is that what he's talking about there? Suits, the
No,
suit of pentacles was changed to discs. Court cards were changed Knight, Queen, Prince, and Princess to better reflect the underlying Thalmonic and elemental correspondences.
no, the Aeon he's referring to, it's central in his philosophy, the Aeon of Horus, the new Aeon of Horus, the crowned and conquering child, where
Oh, yes,
he
yes,
describes, yep, the previous Aeon was the patriarchal age, the Aeon of Osiris, where everyone
yes.
worshipped masculine gods. And before that was the agricultural time I just mentioned, the Aeon of Isis, where everything was a matriarchy or tended to be that way. And the new Aeon was an Aeon of fire, the crowned and conquering child of Horus,
Oh, yeah.
the innocent child.
Yes.
And this is why we had the two world wars around the beginning of the Aeon of Horus, because humanity was just an innocent child with all this new technology and these new structures of gigantic empires. It just didn't know how to handle, we still don't really know how to handle these weapons of war responsibly. So at the dawn of this age, there was two giant world wars.
And isn't it the child on the sun card?
Yes, and this is Horus too. So there's a lot of symbology there. Horus is avenging the death of his father Osiris, who was murdered by Set, who is very similar to Saturn.
Symbolizing innocence, thus the white on the magician card. New beginnings and potential signify the purity of spirit and the promise of growth. Children symbolize this innocence that comes to the card from Six of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles. These other two cards tie in with the child.
But also the positive sides are, ideally, when this child grows up, he will be the best of his mother and his father, the Aeon of Osiris and the Aeon of Isis before him, right?
Yeah.
Because the child was created by the combination of those two. So hopefully, when this child grows up and matures and isn't so innocent anymore, he will have that balance of energies.
Okay, so talk to me about why strength became lust.
Because Crowley likes to be fucking edgy. I mean, in my opinion, it really should have been called passion. It's just in that archaic, you know, English from 100 years ago, lust can really be interchanged with passion. And that's
Okay,
all
I
it's
can
meant. Like
appreciate
when you're
that.
really passionate about something, the,
Lusty.
you're like Babylon on the beast leaping, like the leaping lion. It's fire. It's Leo. It's passion.
Yeah, yeah.
Crowley had a
Magus.
way of cloaking everything in like grotesque or sexual or bloody or anti-Christian metaphors, because his philosophy was like, if you're going to be triggered by the words and you can't see the deeper truth of what I'm actually saying, like you don't deserve to know what I'm actually saying.
That is really a powerful statement. And I admit, when I first started talking with you, you would bring in this deck because like I said, we've been doing this, and in some of the writings associated with him, and it would be like, wow, this is just, whew, this is
Yeah.
really dark, like listen to the opening of our Lilith episode. That is really, but you must be willing to go there. You must be willing to go there to heal. We cannot place these darker manifestations under a rug, or we'll trip over them. They will
Yeah.
they will cause us to stumble in our psychology. And Jung is like called it working the shadow work, where we basically invite our demons to tea.
Yeah. As we were saying before, if the source, the highest of the high, consists of both darkness and light, you can't just be all love and light and pretend darkness doesn't exist. If you want to truly understand the highest of the highest God, you have to look darkness in the face, because that
You
is
have
half of
to.
him.
Yeah. And it's when you're really, and that's just a metaphor, everything I just said, of being honest with yourself and being authentic, being able to wear the white against your skin because you're
As
pure.
within, so without.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about him changing pentacles to discs. I get. What about changing Night Queen Prince and to Princess and not the page?
Oh, well, the
And
graduation
Night.
of the knight to the king, that that's essentially what happened. Well, in some decks there is no page. The knight takes the heir section, but his idea was that many kings, perhaps the majority of kings throughout history, they inherited their throne. That's passive. That isn't fire, right? The real king is the
Oh
knight
my.
who took his empire by war. That is fire. That is why the knight became the king.
Oh my. I have never heard this. Okay. How much does that tie to the magician? And that it takes effort. You're not just given. Like, even the magician is born all around the world in all different types of income houses and all different parts of our world and all different colors, codes, creeds, and skin. Okay. We are all over the place as magicians waiting to embark on the study of the cup, pentacles, yada, yada, yada. But we really aren't anything. It
Yeah,
isn't
it's
anything.
everything. The magician kind of is everything because he's so closely related to Kether.
Yeah, until we move out, it isn't anything. It's just there in pure
Potential.
raw potential.
Yeah.
And we all have this. Like there's no favoritism. And you may say, well, all that guy's table's full of a bunch of gold too. And, he was born really rich and I'm over here with a table that's barely standing up. It doesn't matter because it's how you yourself use your mind and take it and mix it. And there's nobody like you. Nobody is the same. There are no two people who are identical ever. That's crazy.
Yeah, it goes into a lot of mystical teachings that say that the one divided itself into the many
Oh
in
my.
order to experience novelty, essentially, because he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
bored. So,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and biology kind of proves that out because biologists will tell you that life is very good at diversifying and finding all different ways to overcome different challenges and producing novelty overall.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, action requires effort. And it's like saying to you, when you look at it, like, this isn't going to be easy. All of heaven is with you. Surely, as I raise my right hand, all of heaven is with you. But uh, opportunity is hard work in overalls. Henry Ford said that. Opportunity is hard work
Yeah.
in
That's the connection to
overall.
Saturn again,
There
to
it
non
is.
Saturn.
Yeah, structure, discipline. Look at the cup and not just have it sit there. You got to drink from it. You got to hold it. You got to live with it. You got to study it. And then you go on to the pentacles or whatever order you do things. Probably should start with air. um, but yeah, and all the powers there. Where else do we see that? 8. We see it in the strength card, number 8. In the tarot, and he took it and turned it to lust. I think Arthur Waite was really not a happy camper. And this other dude, what was his name? It cracked me up when I read this guy, the one who started the Golden Dawn. What was his name?
Oh,
Uh,
or the head at the time, Mathers.
yeah, he has that whole like McGregory Magus
Yeah,
name. He's got this whole damn name. It's like 4 words. Anyway, it's up there
and
in
the
my notes.
initials. And
Yeah. All right. Let me see here. Crawley. Okay, this was interesting. Crowley authored the deck's definitive companion text, the Book of Thoth, in 1944. Although
Yes, I quoted that from that a little bit earlier, and it's so complicated it needed another book to many other books to explain it. Like it is not an entry level book at all. Like you need to be very well versed in mythology from all around the world and Kabbalah, not at a beginner level to understand everything he's saying. It's really an intense work.
So the deck was completed in 1943, but not commercially published until 1969, after both Crowley and Harris passed away. I did not cross-reference that. That was
Yeah, it was the last thing he ever did that
The
was
Thoth
published.
Tarot remains an influential popular deck, considered a seminal work of the 20th century occultism and a profound artistic achievement. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Not many,
definitely the second most popular deck.
yeah, I would say. Yeah. I like that he calls him the Magus. It gives it a little bit more appeal to me. He saw the Magus as focused will acting without calculation in alignment with the true will of the universe. What do you think of that statement? He
Yeah,
saw the Magus as focused will acting without calculation in alignment with the true will of the universe.
yeah, it's exactly do is that will is the whole of the law. Love
Yeah.
is the law, love under will. It's exactly that.
From the Book of Thoth on the magician, he says, the magician must be wary in his use of his powers. He must make every act not only accord with his will, but with the properties of his position at the time.
That's huge in magic. The
There's a lot in it.
aligning to
There's a
the
lot.
planets, the day, everything.
Yeah, which some would say, why are you doing a podcast when there's planets in retrograde, even Mercury's in retrograde, Neptune's in retrograde? I mean,
It's going well, so we're doing something right.
here's the thing. We're reviewing on a very deep level Mercury. We're holding Mercury. Saturn is in retrograde. We're holding it for a while in a structure to examine it, and then we'll release it.
So we're going to finish our section on Crowley with some primary sources on his workings, specifically how the Book of the Law came to be, which he considered his most important work. And so the following information comes from, I stitch it together from two sources. He gives different accounts, well, different levels of details on how the Book of Law came to be on two separate occasions. One from, as we discussed earlier, the Equinox, Volume 1, Number 7, and also a separate book, not to be confused, called The Equinox of the Gods. Now, to really, as I said I would do, give some background information so this story makes sense, we'll read a little bit about Crowley's wife, Rose Edith Kelly, in Crowley's own words. He said the following: personality intensely powerful and magnetic, intellect absent, but mind adaptable to that of any companion, so that she could always say the right nothing. Charm, grace, vitality, vivacity, tact, manners, all inexpressibly fascinating. Education, strictly social and domestic. She did not even know schoolgirl French. She had read nothing, not so much as novels. She was a miracle of perfection as poetic ideal, mistress, wife, mother, house president, nurse pal, and comrade. Now, what's going to follow is that Rose Edith Kelly unexpectedly becomes a medium. And this was completely spontaneous. He didn't Crowley didn't train her in any way, as he will state later. So this all starts on March 16th in Cairo. And he writes the following. Personally, this is his own writings of the account. He says, March 16th, tried to show the sliffs to Rose. Sliffs are air elementals. Crowley tells us that this was done by the ritual of the bornless one. She was in a dazed state, stupid, possibly drunk, possibly hysterical from pregnancy. She could see nothing, but could hear. She was fiercely excited at the messages and passionately insistent that I should take them seriously. I was annoyed at her irrelevance and her infliction of nonsense upon me. She refused or was unable to see any slips, but became inspired and kept on saying, "They're waiting for you. It's all about the child and also all Osiris." March 17th. More apparently nonsensical messages, this time spontaneous. I invoke Thoth, probably as in Liber 64, and presumably to clear up the muddle. And just to clarify, this is his recounting afterwards, like not recently afterwards, years later. So that's why the details are a bit sparse and Thoth evidently got clear through to her, for she discovers that Horus is addressing me through her and identifies him by a method utterly excluding chance or coincidence and involving knowledge which only I possessed, some of it arbitrary, so that she or her informant must have been able to read my mind as well as if I had spoken it. How W, she's referenced by a magical name here, and so is Crowley. So W is his wife, Rose Edith Kelly. How W knew RHK, Ra Hor Kuit, a twin version of Horus. And this is how she was quizzed. I asked her to describe his moral qualities. Force and fire was her response. I asked her to describe the condition caused by him. This light is quite unmistakable and unique, but of course, her words, through a fair description of it, might equally apply to some other. She said, deep blue light. I asked her to pick out his name from a list of 10 dashed off at haphazard. She picked Horus. It recognized his figure when shown. This refers to the striking scene at the Bulak Museum, which will be dealt with in detail. And this is the stele of revealing that is important in Thelema. 5. Knew my past relations with the god. This means, I think, that she knew I had taken his place in the temple, etc., and that I had never once invoked him. Knew his enemy. I asked, who is his enemy? Reply, forces of the waters of the Nile. And she knew no Egyptology or anything else. Remember, I read before, she had not read anything. She knew his lineal figure and its color, a 1/84th chance. She knew his place in the temple, a 1/4 chance at least. She knew his weapon from a list of 6. She knew his planetary nature from a list of 7 planets. She knew his number from a list of 10 units. She picked him out of 5 and 3 indifferent arbitrary symbols. This means that I settled in my own mind that, say, D of A, B, C, D, and E should represent him, and that she had said D. We cannot too strongly insist on the extraordinary character of this identification. We had made no pretension of clairvoyance, no had P, in this case, this is referring to Crowley, it's another magical name, ever tried to train her. Crowley got a great experience of clairvoyance, and it was always a point of honor with him to bowl them out. Now, this is a British way of saying to embarrass them. It's a cricket reference. So Crowley had great experience with clairvoyance, and it was always a point of honor with him to bowl them out. And here was the novice, a woman who should never have been allowed outside of a ballroom, speaking with the authority of God and proving it by unhesitating correctness. Mm-hmm. Now, he Invocation of Horus according to the divine vision of W the seer. This is his wife. She's calling the shots now because she is in communion with the gods. And now the magician is taking a back seat because the god is in charge now through the seer. It says, to be performed, this is her instructions from Horus through her to Crowley. To be performed before a window open to the east or north without incense. The room to be filled with jewels, but only diamonds to be worn. A sword unconsecrated. 44 pearl beads to be told. Stand bright daylight at 12:30 noon. Locked doors, white robes, bare feet. Be very loud. Saturday. Use the sign of Apophis and Typhon. These are Crowley's ideas for the ritual. Rose replied, omit preliminary banish, lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram, flaming sword, abacadabra, invoke as before. That, nope. Rose/Horus said, nope, we're not doing this. We're omitting this. And it was not documented exactly what the results of this particular ritual are, because this goes on for many, many days.
Wow.
I thought I had a little more on Crowley than that on that story, but yeah, the point of bringing this up is to show how to elucidate, to define the magician by its opposite, right? Because the magician is not the clairvoyant. The magician is not the seer. The magician is about projecting energy, projecting will. The seer is about receiving energy, receiving will. And I thought it's an interesting way to really paint the picture of how magicians work, often with seers.
I was looking at the Tarot of the Spirit, Pamela Eakin's book. This is just an incredible. She did a tarot deck called Tarot of the Spirit. I do not have that deck. I have a book that she wrote on that deck, and it's just so exhaustive. It's really a treasure trove, and it's falling apart. There was only one other owner who's got her name in here. She purchased it in 1993, and this book came to me in 2020. She has a section, the Tree of Life, and of course she shows it on the Tree of Life. And then she also shows the 22 paths. And this, we had talked about Magus, which is what Crowley calls the magician, right? Being path 12. And path 12 goes from Kether potential to Bana form.
Yes.
And the reason why is because the Fool is the 11th path, and he goes to Shakma too. On the other side, Magnus goes down to Bana. So you've got Kether, Magnus, Fool, Shakma, Bana. So path 1 is Kether, the gate of potential. We talked about it being the beginning, source of all existence. Correlates with the ones or the aces in each of the 4 suits. Path 2, Shakma, the gate of force, as the universal male or father principle. This is the sphere of energy and emission. It indicates direction and corresponds to the 2s in the 4 suits of the tarot. It also corresponds to the fathers of each suit. And then finally, path 3, Bana, the gate of form. Bana is a universal female or mother principle, the sphere of receptivity. It corresponds to the 3s of each suit as well as the mothers. So we have potential, force, form. And that is the goal of the magician, right?
That is the recipe for magic, for manifestation.
Manifestation, exactly. So we see why the magician is where he is and how we have to begin there, because Potential is everything. Potential is not yet. It's there, latent. We've heard, boy, she has great potential. If only she would, practice that piano every day, she could be really good. Potential's not anything unless you plug it in. It's like that electricity cord. And that's why the male and the female's there. And you can just see so much as above, so below ideas here of how life is on Earth with the male, female, and how we need it and how together it creates something. It's really quite brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. It's amazing. So I just wanted to reiterate that and bring it in, piggybacking on what you said. Did you have anything else you wanted to add there on that section? Okay, so that was really quite interesting. I have a question. What's up with, well, a couple questions. And you might not know this, but first of all, let me back up and say this. I had no idea all this stuff was written down, that he did this, that Crowley wrote so directly and detailed about what
Oh
the
yeah.
hell he was doing. And my question is, why would he do this? Like, what was his purpose? What was his end game with his wife? And then why all the names? Like, talk about confusing.
Yeah,
What was
the
going on?
well, it seems like the original motive, it all just started out with Crowley was just like, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" to his wife. Like he was just trying to show her the air elementals they call sliffs. And then all of a sudden, spirits started talking through his wife. And then he found out it was Horus. And then he started listening to the how Horus was telling him to do rituals. And eventually, the Book of the Law came.
Do you really think it was Horace?
Who knows? I mean, it was impossible to know for sure. I mean, I'm not one to have tremendous faith, but it's certainly interesting work for sure.
It's totally interesting work. I just don't know why the guy wanted to go down that road so much. Like,
Well, he didn't. He actually talked about hating it. Like here, I have a passage if I can in one of the books I already have pulled up where he talks about the detractors and he's like, "Listen, I hated this. I wanted to deny this. I hated the message. I hated what it wanted me to do." This is what Crowley says about the questions about how this book was obtained. He says, quote, oh, this is from the book The Equinox of the Gods. Certainly, very serious questions have arisen with regard to the method by which this book was obtained. I do not refer to those doubts, real or pretended, with hostility engenders, for all such are dispelled by study of the text. No forger could have prepared so complex a set of numerical and literal puzzles as to leave himself A, devoted to the solution for years after, B, baffled by a simplicity with which, when disclosed, leaves one grasping at its profundity, C, enlightened only by progressive initiation or by accidental events apparently disconnected with the book, which occurred long after its publication. D, hostile, bewildered, and careless, even in the face of independent testimony as to the power and clarity of the book, and of the fact that by its light other men have attained the loftiest summits of initiation in a tithe of time which history and experience would lead one to expect. And E, angrily unwilling to proceed with that part of the work which appointed for him is detailed in chapter 3. Even when the course of events on the planet, war, revolution, and the collapse of societal and religious systems of civilization proved plainly to him that whether he liked it or no, Ra Hor Kuit was indeed Lord of the Aeon, and the crowned and conquering child whose innocence meant no more than inhuman cruelty and wantonly senseless destructiveness, as he avenged Isis, our mother, the earth, and the heaven for the murder and mutilation of Osiris, man, her son. The War of 1914 to 1918 and its sequels have proved, even to the dullest statesman, beyond wit of even the most subtly sophistical theologians to gloze, that death is not an unmixed benefit either to the individual or to the community. That force of fire of leaping manhood are more useful to a nation than cringing respectability and emasculate servility. That genius goes with courage, and the sense of shame and guilt with defeatism.
Such a different time. The writing is so strong. Was
Yeah, and
that?
he was an excellent writer even for his time too.
Yeah. Well, he has a Libra sun in the third house, conjunct Venus, which probably was born wealthy, which he was. He inherited, was born into wealth, and probably quite attractive, if I had to guess. Uh, but it's sextiling. His sun is sextiling Uranus in a Leo ascendant, opposite Saturn in Aquarius with other people. So he was quite a unique fellow that learned a lot of hard lessons through other people who were also equally very strange and very unique, because Aquarius is the rebel ruled by Uranus, and it's in his first house opposite the seventh. So, right there, we really see a lot of shocking and unexpected and uh, ether messages, messages coming from way out. This isn't Mercury. Mercury rules the magician because you need to know how to be practical, right? You need to know how to use it all. That's where you have to have Mercury. But
Because
really,
he's
yeah,
also the god of mercantilism, just every day buying and selling to
yes.
survive.
And he has that in the fourth house of in Scorpio, conjunct Jupiter, the great benefic in Scorpio. Now, Jupiter, whenever he shows up, he's big, he's large. That also shows an inheritance of some sort or a blessing or wealth that was in the home. And with Mercury there, his house would have been really a chatty, busy place. However, it's fixed in Scorpio. So it'd be interesting to see his heritage deeper there and how that plays out. But he has a Neptune on his midheaven, and his Neptune is in Taurus. So on the midheaven, right on the cusp of the 10th house, whenever we have any planet on one of the four angles, it becomes very important. It means that planet's going to be super active in your life, more than likely, or it'll play a very big part. And so with Neptune there on the midheaven, he is what's called a Neptunian, someone who goes way, way out there with his imagination, his creativity, his ability to go to other realms, his ability to leave this earth and connect with that which is way out there, out of bounds, outside of Saturn. Even Saturn can't control this. And that's pretty deep to have it on the midheaven like that. You know who else had Neptune on the midheaven? That guy that we talked about in our water element episode. Was it Mansoto or Mansuti? I can't remember his name. Emoto, the guy who did
Oh,
all
I
the
don't
water
remember.
studies. When he froze water to music, he saw that it turned into certain structures based on the sounds and the words. He also froze words, and they would form certain. And you don't remember him?
I remember talking about him. Yeah,
Okay, well,
I don't
he
remember the
has
name.
Neptune, the watery Neptune, who's Pisces Lord, also on the midheaven. So here's another person that we definitely saw this in his life. I just asked you, why did he do this stuff? It's pretty
Yeah.
clear he was
And
compelled, like you just said. I mean, he said this. He was compelled,
yeah.
basically. Well,
And
Pluto's there in the 10th too, in
and
the same house.
on that, and I know you love numbers, so I am excited to hear what you think of this. One of what his claims he just made about the Book of the Law is all the different meanings and codes, double entendre, numerical literal puzzles, gematria, and he explains one of them right here. And let's see if you can follow it because it's a little crazy. I can understand a little bit, but he goes a little crazy with gematria and the numbers and all some references I probably just don't know yet. So this here it is. As an example of the first method above mentioned, we have Cap 3, quote from the Book of the Law: "The fool readeth this book, and he understandeth it not." This has a secret reverse sense meaning. The fool, in parentheses, Parzival equals FRA dot O dot I dot V dot V dot I dot O, close parentheses, understandeth it, being, in parentheses, being a magister templi, the grade attributed to understanding, close parentheses, not, in parentheses, i.e., to be not. This Parzival, adding to 418, is, parentheses, in the legend of the Grail, the son of Camuret, adding to 666, and being the son of me, the beast, by the scarlet woman Hilarion. This name was chosen by her when half drunk as a theft from theosophical legend, but containing many of our letter number keys to the mysteries. The number of the petals in the most sacred lotus, it adds to 1001, which is also 7 times 11 times 13, a series of factors which may be read as the scarlet woman's love by magic producing unity in Hebrew Akkad. For 7 is the number of Venus, and the secret 7-lettered name of my concubine Babylon is written with 7 sevens. Thus, 77 plus double parentheses 7 plus 7, close one parentheses, divided by 7, close the second parentheses, plus 77 equals 156, the number of Babylon. So you see, the numerology gets a little crazy.
Oh, his brain was something else, wasn't it? Guy was really
Yeah,
smart. Yeah. Yeah. Well, his
I hope
uh
to understand that one day.
his Mercury sextiling his Capricorn Mars in the 6th house. Mercury rules the 6th house, Lord of the 6th house. His sun is in the other Mercury ruled house, which is the 3rd. But his Venus, this is where we see some of his crazy stuff he did with women and the sexual perversion. We have to bring it out. Venus is squaring Mars. So, and the sun is squaring Mars. So that's not a comfortable aspect to be in there with the feminine. And his Black Moon Lilith is in the 5th in between Scorpio and Capricorn. And it's opposite or in conjunct rather Pluto. So, and Neptune. So there's just a lot of sexual energy that's not Mars is sexual energy, Black Moon Lilith is sexual energy, anger, repressed anger, rebellion in Black Moon Lilith. Um, how long was Black Moon Lilith agitated before she finally took off? Who knows? But I don't think she just decided to do it. That's not the feminine in any form, unless you're really dark. But anyway, I digress. He also has a fire trine in first. I have this fire trine as well in a grand water trine. Wow, a grand water trine in the Dharma houses. I should put it that way. Dharma houses are 1, 5, and 9, where his north node in Aries is. His midheaven is in Aries. I'm just seeing this. So really his Neptune's to the left of the midheaven because he was born in England. So that changes the chart a little bit here. So his Chiron is conjunct Neptune there, though. So yeah, he in the ninth house, Chiron there, he believed a lot of things that were very much different and it brought wounds to him. No doubt about it.
Yeah, in researching this, I was reading, he wrote a little bit about his life, and he wrote that his dad was a true Christian. He didn't say Christian, he used whatever sect he was a part of that I don't remember, but he basically said, my father was a true Christian, and therefore he tolerated me for being different. Although his mother, sorry for changing tenses there, but I don't remember enough to quote it verbatim, but he was saying his mother was a pretender. Like she converted to please his father, and she was one of those, thou doth protest too much, basically. And after his father died, his relationship with his mother really fell apart. And because she was very hard on him for being different, because as he was basically saying, she was one of the fake Christians, the pretenders, and that's why she called him the B666.
Well, Scorpio's in the fourth house of home, his roots, right? So it's going to be a topic of communication, but he's got Jupiter there. I think that just, him coming into a family that wasn't disadvantaged, so to speak. But isn't it ironic that Chiron is up there in the ninth house, in the house of philosophy and beliefs? And it's opposite Venus and opposite his sun. So there's that. A lot, he definitely didn't have an easy life. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I'm going to hop on Pamela Cole Smith. We ready for that?
Yep. I've
Okay.
never heard of her before. I imagine most people haven't.
Yeah, Pamela Cole Smith, born 1878, died 1951, is known as the face of the Tarot in that she was the illustrator of the Rider-Waite Smith, and I like to call it Smith-Waite deck just to give her
Oh,
credit. She was nicknamed Pixie and was a British artist, illustrator, writer, and occultist. She's best known as the artist who illustrated the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, also now widely known as Rider-Waite Smith RWS Tarot. She was born in Pimlico, London, in England. And so she spent her childhood there between Manchester, London, New York, and Kingston, Jamaica, where her father worked. Her early exposure to Jamaican folklore, which she later documented in books, Annecy Stories, written in 1899, was a significant influence. She studied art at the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, but left without completing her degree in 1897. Versatile artist, illustrator for William Butler Yeats and Bram Stoker, she founded her own magazine, The Green Sheaf, and was a theatrical designer for a miniature theater and the Lyceum Theater Group, traveling with them on tour. In 1901, she got involved with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. She was introduced by Yeats, and this is where she met Arthur Edward Waite. She later followed him into a splinter organization. So when, all those people got angry and split, this always happens with people, doesn't it?
yeah, drama.
Yeah, it just doesn't change, does it? So he left because he was pissed off and couldn't get along with people and, decided to do his own thing. It's one thing to leave if you're maybe called to something else or, your path is turning and changing or for whatever reasons and you leave and you're like, peace upon you. It was really good connecting. Or even if you disagree and you just say, hey, you seem to be going a different way and I'm just not down for that now, but I wish you well. That's the way to do it, right? But that
It,
doesn't
it
happen.
seems it seems like magical orders are more. It's more like a herd of cats. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone just constantly wants to go their own way because it is art. Like it's understandable. It is
absolutely.
art in that way.
Well, when you think about the kind of people that are drawn to this, it's
Yeah,
the people that
exactly.
are rejecting traditional, probably heritage, at least if you're in the United States of America, will still consider it a very strong Christian nation. It's
The West in
changing.
general.
Yeah, the West in general. I mean, it's changing. And when you are different or you question it and you begin to read the other books, your mind begins to expand and you can't stay where you are. You have to move with your growth. So she also supported the women's suffrage movement and contributed artwork to the cause, which I thought was really cool. It'd be interesting to see her involvement more deeper. She moved from London to Cornwall and converted to Catholicism in 1911. Struggled financially despite her artistic success. She died in 51, reportedly penniless and obscure, just like Aleister Crowley, right? How about that?
Interesting.
It is interesting, and I feel sad about that. The Rider Waite was published when? 1909 in London, England by William Rider and Son, commissioned by Waite. So she created all 78 cards in a very short period. And from the material I saw, I went to Wikipedia and some other links, likely between April and October 1909. Testament to her prolific output and ability to visualize the complex esoteric themes. She could see music, which is called a synesthete. I've never heard of this word till when I read this. Synesthete, a quality that many have informed the striking imagery and color schemes in the card that may have informed. Yeah, she could see notes. It's crazy. See music.
Yeah, the disorder I think they call her condition is synesthesia, and it applies to all senses. Like some people see colors, and I'm not. Uh, sorry, some people
That's really
hear
cool.
colors
Yeah.
and things like that. So I guess they made synesthete is the word they made out
would
of it, the
be the
noun.
would be the noun of what that is. The deck was very successful. It sold over 100 million copies. She received a small flat fee for her work and no royalties. So then, you think about this and it's like, why were women always burned over back then? Yeah, I know why. I mean, I understand how far we've come, but what have we lost and what wasn't tapped? And I'm not crying over spilled milk, but what wasn't tapped because these women weren't allowed to really take their place and be accepted and be she should have gotten every deck that was sold, she should have gotten a royalty on. It's just wrong. It's wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah. The importance of a good contract.
Yeah, well, back then women were property. They were starting to come out. We saw this boldly. Okay, then I went on to a person called Paul Foster Case, born 1884 to 1954, and he is associated with a deck by, or the magician specifically. It's the founder of the Builders of Adytum, BOTA, which focused heavily on the
Oh yeah.
Kabbalah and esoteric correspondences. Yeah, he linked the magician to the Hebrew letter Beth. It's so crazy how you brought that in because I had my notes right here on it.
I
And
think
the
that's the
planet
Golden Dawn
Mercury.
attribution.
Yeah, do you think so?
The Golden Dawn originally made all of these. There's even more tables of correspondences we haven't talked about yet, but they were huge at uh, bringing together all these correspondences on the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life.
That would be really good to have a big chart of that. He emphasized the principle of focus, attention, and the transmission of creative energy through the cup, through the swords, through the pentacles. He saw the magician as a symbol of the conscious self directing the inner forces. and he wrote the Book of Tokens, Meditation on Key 1. A lot of writers call the arcana cards keys. You familiar with this?
Yes.
I am
In
a.
the Thoth deck, he even uses the Egyptian word for keys. They're called atus.
Oh, really? How do you spell
Yeah.
that?
ATU.
That just rings a bell when you say it. Atus. He says in the Book of Tokens, I do not own this information. I am a center of expression for the primal will to good, which eternally creates and sustains the universe. Wow. I thought that was very, very deep. I've not heard of the builders of Addington, so I don't know anything about them. Do you?
I came across their YouTube channel. There was most of them are Kabbalistic chants by this woman.
Okay. No, never heard of it. So much to read, so little time. Then I have a lady called Eden Gray. She was born 1901 to 1999, and she helped initiate a modern Tarot revival. And what she did is a lot of work to get her the name, the godmother of modern American Tarot. So the professional name was Priscilla Partridge. Have you ever heard of her? Not to be
No.
confused with the
That's a great
Partridge
name
Family.
though.
I know. An American actress and writer who became a pivotal figure in the 20th century resurgence of interest in tarot cards in the United States. So I brought her in because it was 1901, right? So quite a while ago, but really beginning to see this now come into the West a little bit more profoundly through people like this. Born June 9th, 1901 in Chicago, Illinois. She died in Vero Beach, Florida. Born to a prominent Chicago family. She went into acting, had a stage career, and adopted the name Eden Gray. She was in Broadway and a few films in the 20s and 30s. She earned a Doctor of Divinity degree from the First Church of Religious Science in New York, became a lecturer and teacher of the science of the mind. It's crazy. I own that deck, The Science of the Mind.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that deck. It's deep, really deep. And I have to admit, sometimes I'll pull a card and I just have to let it sit on my altar there and marinate, and read it every day and kind of try to grasp it. But she was a bookstore owner. In the 50s, she opened an inspirational house publishing, a New York bookstore, and a publishing company, which was one of the few places where people could easily find books and classes on the occult and metaphysical topics like the tarot. So, I'm not going to go into her more deeply, but just really brought in a lot of writing as well to have a more direct and easy to understand system to the tarot. So she wrote Tarot Revealed in 1960, A Complete Guide to the Tarot. In 1970, Mastering the Tarot. In 71, were instrumental in popularizing the RWS deck in the United States, essentially provided a clear and what they call the demystified guide to the deck. So kind of like your Thoth deck books, same thing. She was one of the first people to start talking about it as a fool's journey and
Wow.
made it really popular about this allegorical tale of the spiritual path and life challenges. And isn't it crazy? I quoted from the Fool's Journey book. So, like, you see these synchronicities here that come up when you do research and you study. The universe has a way of saying you're on the right path with things like this. And I think that when you start tapping into Mercury and using that intelligence and merging with those four tools on the table, You'll begin to see more synchronicities, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, once you start living it.
Living it. Right. Not just studying it, but actually doing it.
Yes.
Okay, she talks about the cards having conscious power and meaning, and the magician card of mastery and the ability to shape one's world using all available tools. She states, he represents the power to take the formless material of this universe and by the exercise of creative will, fashion it into tangible realities. And the magician uses the way of the intellect to uncover spiritual secrets. He is an active seeker of knowledge and clarity. So kudos to you, Miss Eden Gray. Thank you. Rachel Pollack, 1945 to 2023. This was an interesting person. I don't own her books, but I know of her books, her astrology books. But she was also an American author and an advocate for transgender rights. She did a lot of work in science fiction, comic books, and expertise in divinatory tarot. She was recognized for her deep, complex psychological and spiritual analyses. She says of the magician is a card that is auspicious, especially for writers and other creators, for it symbolizes creativity itself.
Wow. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, right? Let's see. Australian Ancient Wisdom. I was going to read from this book real quick. I got a note in here to read from here. And I think I'm going to save that for when we go into the reversed meaning. So I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, I think that was just the last person I wanted to showcase. And from there, you were going to talk about John Dee and bring that story in. And then I guess we'll do the shadow or any comments before the shadow, and we'll look at the reversed, and then we'll button it up with your poem you're going to end with.
Sure. Yeah. So John Dee and Edward Kelly, perhaps one of the most famous magician and seer pairs in history. Their artifacts are still on display in British museums today. And so here's a little introduction to them from the book called The Enochian Workbook by Gerald and Betty Schuler. The Enochian language was first recorded by John Dee, the court astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I of England from 1558 to 1603. Dee was born in England in 1527. He was educated at Cambridge University and became an authority on mathematics, navigation, astronomy, optics, astrology, and natural magic. He was friendly with Queen Elizabeth and reportedly worked for her as a spy on several occasions. In the course of his many studies, Dee became interested in crystal gazing. He found that he could not do it successfully himself, so he hired crystal gazers to do the actual operations for him while he took notes. He used a variety of crystals, and the two of them can be seen today, and two of them can be seen today in the British Museum. Working with Edward Kelly, his foremost psychic and associate and partner, Dee recorded and translated the Enochian language. According to Dee's diary, the language was revealed to him by angels. And I would note that Dee, as a magician, did more than just record while the crystal gazer did the actual work. I would say that's a bit of a biased description. What Dee does as the magician is everything that makes the messages come to the seer. He sets the table, sets the incense, sets the mood of the room, all of the various ritual preparations, and the medium, the sensitive, the psychic, their job is just to sit there and be a sponge and soak up the messages, energies that come to them.
Hmm.
So to continue from the Enochian workbook, one of the main results of Dee's research was a series of tablets sectioned into squares with letters on each square. These were the English equivalent letters of the Enochian alphabet. They spelled out the names of those deities who rule over the regions symbolized by the squares. The tablets were maps of the invisible spheres that surrounded the physical world. Those are the aethers we were just talking about with Crowley. And speaking of that, little became of Dee's work until late in the 19th century, when it was utilized by a mysterious and highly secret brotherhood of adepts in England who called themselves the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And of course, Crowley was one of those. We were reading from some of that work, The Vision and the Voice, as he was scrying the Enochian Aethers. And I just thought that the synchronicity of the names here was really interesting, because we were just talking about Crowley's wife, who ended up being a medium. Her full name was Rose Edith Kelly. And now we're talking about the psychic Edward Kelly, who
Yeah.
worked with John Dee. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was really interesting. Kelly spelled the same way and everything.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And John Dee also took uh, many notes of his workings. He kept a detailed diary. So we have a firsthand account as to some of these workings with angels. So we are going to get right into it. He is about to be he's about to be in the room with Archangel Michael and Archangel Uriel. Here's Archangel Michael talking. And if I stumble a little bit here,
Wow.
bear with me, because they're using the old English spellings for a lot of words. Because remember, this is from the 1500s. Okay. Archangel Michael says through Kelly, I will be thy guide. Thou shalt attain unto thy searching. The world begins with thy doings. Praise God. The angels under my power shall be at thy commandment. Thou shalt see me. I will be seen of thee, and I will direct thy living and conversation. Put up thy pen. Now, these are Dee's comments. Now Michael thrust out his right arm with the sword and bade the scryer to look. That's Kelly. Then the sword did seem to cleave in two, and a great fire flamed out of it vehemently. Then he took a ring out of the flame of his sword and gave it to Uriel, and said, the strength of God is unspeakable. Praise be God forever and ever. Then Uriel did make curse to him, curse to him, Michael. After this sort must thy ring be. Note it. I will reveal thee this ring, which was never revealed since the death of Solomon, with whom I was present. I was present with him in strength and mercy. Lo, this it is. This it is wherewith all miracles and divine works and wonders were wrought by Solomon. This it is which I have revealed unto thee. This it is which philosophy dreameth of. This it is which the angels scarce know. This it is, and blessed be his name, yea, his name be blessed forever. So shall it do at thy commandment. Without this thou shalt do nothing. Blessed be his name, and compasseth all things. Wonders are in him, and his name is wonderful. His name worketh wonders from generation to generation. Nothing to be done without the ring. Dee's note. Then he brought in the seal, which he showed the other day, and opened his sword and bade the scryer read, and he read E Emeth. It's spelled Emeth, all capitals. D. Then the sword closed up again, and Michael said, this I do open unto thee, because thou marvelest at Sigillium Dei. This is the name of the seal, which be blessed forever. This is the seal itself. This is holy. This is pure. This is forever. Amen. Sigillium ameth. As truly I was with Solomon, so truly will I be with thee. I was with Solomon in all his works and wonders. And this is discussing the magical square tables. And I thought this was interesting because this is a very straightforward question from D and then gets an answer from Michael through Kelly. What is the use of the seven tables and from what ground are they framed or derived? Oh, sorry, he's talking to Angel Uriel here. Uriel, they are the ensigns of the creation, wherewithal they were created by God, known only by their acquaintance and the manner of their doings. Uriel, creationist insignia. D, have I rightly applied the days to the kings? Uriel, the days are rightly applied to the kings. D, the characters and words annexed to the king's names in the utter circumference of the great circle or globe, how are they to be used? Uriel, they are to be painted on sweet wood, and so to be held in thy hand as thou shalt have cause to use them. Eodem temp sigillium ameth is set to be in the middle of the table.
Hmm.
What do you think of that?
Okay, is that Aleph? Aleph?
Aemeth.
Okay. Okay. Different Aleph. Okay. Wow. Um, I knew of John D only because of Hollywood, you know, and
Said
seeing
Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah, seeing him serve Queen Elizabeth. I don't remember what series or anything, but that's when I first came across him and how she relied on him really, really heavily. Wasn't she his astrologer too?
But he was her astrologer.
He was her astrologer. That's what I meant. Yeah. Wow.
And there's
So,
there's some sorry, you had a question. Go
yeah,
ahead.
was he more like religious and spiritual
Yeah,
and Catholic than he
so
was?
there's some debate as to who he was actually talking to from the people that read this because D himself believes that these are, the Christian angels from God.
Well, my
But
goodness.
at certain times, though, the angels say some very unchristian things. If you read his whole diary, at one point they say, like, the God of the Bible is not the true God and all this. And D just assumes, like, this is a test.
Yeah. Yeah, an angel speaking through you. I just don't know what kind of power that would be. I mean, I just think that I'm not saying that can't happen, but wow.
Well,
How
it's
do you even
interesting.
stand after that? Like, I,
Well, there are preparations that need to be made
well,
in
sure.
the five keys of in the five keys of Solomon. The Goetia is only the third, but the five keys of Solomon talk about also working with angels and with neutral beings, and it discusses how angels won't show up for you unless you do certain things like avoid sex, avoid meat, avoid smelly foods, smelly herbs, avoid body odor. I thought it's interesting that you have to do these very specific things or the angels won't show up. Well, and specifically it aligns towards what you would think, like with the Christian things that are good, like don't have sex, and even says, like, if you've been working with the demons, the angels will know and they won't show up.
Well, that's not everyone's experience. I mean, I was in religion for 15 years, really heavy core Christianity, um, Assemblies
According
of
to the angelic
God.
grimoires, that's just
Yeah, no, see,
the
and
method
it's
of
like,
working.
mm, yeah, okay. Anything else you want to share on that?
Yeah, the one thing I would have to say about Enochian magic is that the sigils, the tables he's talking about, they are really crazy. I have a I have a book of them, and I would say the craziest one is the Nalvage sigil. Like when I look at it, it's like almost like a slight psychedelic effect, like I'm on 1 gram of mushrooms. Like it is powerful, powerful stuff. And I don't have like visual distortions very easily. I am annoyingly grounded. I wish I did more often. Drugs would be more fun, but I don't typically see things.
Annoyingly grounded. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Wow. Well, that's really something. I have not read any of that, and I look forward to taking some time to take a look at that. Is that out of a PDF? You got that information?
Yeah, oh yes, that is from his diaries. This portion of it is called Heptarchia Mystica. You can find a lot, most of these sources that I've read tonight, you can find on the Hermetic library called hermetic.com. And we'll have some links in the description.
Okay. All right. Does that close up our people? Anyone else we want to highlight? What did he say
No,
of
that's
them?
it
What
for
did he
me.
say of like was there any mention of him tied to the Tarot? Because
Um,
let's see, you said
yeah,
1527.
that might have been around like when the first tarot decks were coming, the
I
Tarot
think
Busca,
Marcel's deck was the 16th
Sola
century,
Busca.
if I'm
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah, it's around the same time.
I think
I don't
so.
remember running into anything about him and tarot.
Yeah, well, it definitely would have been a game first, probably among his circles. Taroki, is that how you pronounce it? Karaoke. It's
Yeah,
like
the Italian.
karaoke, but it's a card game.
Well, I
Okay.
think it originated as the very first in history. I'm pretty sure is the Solabusca tarot, and I think it was a way for the elites to hide their Saturn worship. That's just some things I've heard from people who have really looked into that deck.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, I'm gonna read from the Tarot of the Spirit, Pamela Eakins, PhD, Companion to the Tarot Deck by Joyce Eakins. Her writing in here is really something. And under the Tarot keys, this is page 253. I wanted to read
Tarot
a
key.
section. Yeah, what?
It's tarot keys. Tarot key.
Oh, yeah, how about that? That's funny. She has key one, the Magus. She also calls him the Magus. And there's a meditation she has with each of her keys, and then a few things I wanted to read before we go into reversal, right? Is that where we were going to go? And then I want to talk about Mercury a little bit because Mercury has a lot to do with our ability to communicate and how when the card is reversed, it can tie into all that, which can tie into our mental health. And I go down that road a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to read this meditation. And I thought this was interesting because you talked way back in the beginning of this about breath and it coming out of the mouth and how it tied into Beth and the house and that it's our breath connecting with that. And when the breath speaks, things get created. Like I think you referenced the word in the
Yeah,
Bible.
it's because Crowley was saying, making the argument in all language lies the potential, or not even the potential. I think he just said within all language lies misunderstanding and untruth. but the universe was created by the word. That's quite a predicament.
Well, you have to ask who the creator was. And then, that takes you down a whole story of people have different beliefs on what that is. Some believe there's a monotheistic one, only one, just one, and it's male. Some believe there's one source, which could quite possibly have male and feminine attributes. Yeah, there's a lot of different beliefs, right? So it kind of depends. The meditation goes like this. In the beginning was the Word. Now, this is directly out of scripture here. This is John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Beth, the house of force, the temple of spirit, the house of personality. The Magus is the communication of Mercury, the bearer of the wand. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. She's referencing there where I think it's Paul in one of his books referenced Christ. And he says that directly. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him. And without him was nothing, was not anything made that was made. It also could be Colossians, so I could be wrong on that. That does sound like Colossians too. Another Paul letter in the New Testament. The word of creation, whose speech is silence, truth and falsehood, wisdom and folly, shouting in the void. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, shining luminous with transparency, juggling wine, gold, frankincense, and fire in the mire of a knowingness, but willing, knowing, daring, touching. There is an initiative, primal will, the primary mode of consciousness concealed behind all veils of name and form, building domes where none have been built before, drawing down the power to open the door of light in darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The esoteric qualities are Hebrew attribution, Beth, pronounced Baeth, the house, and that Hebrew symbol that you were talking about attributed to Beth is on the 12th path from crown to from the crown, Kether, to understanding Banah, and it sits on the symbol on my chart here, and Mercury sits also on that path. So it's been confirmed through different readers and different people we've mentioned. It keeps showing up. The 12th path mediates between Kether, the universal breath of life, and Banah, the eternal mother. Essence, controlled action, intelligence, the transparent intelligence, the knower of all things. Veil, illusion, and trickery are the essence of magic. Mystery, magic is universal force traveling through the vehicle of the physical body. Fatherhood is not construed until children are brought forth. The house is potential form in which the universal force can reside. This house can be viewed as Beth, Magus, Key 1, that which houses the divine spirit. The Magus represents the ability to channel and direct universal force through the vehicle of the house. The Magus is the supreme magician, the master of dynamic power, expanded perception, the motivating energy at the center of the turning of the spring. See Key 10. The Magus standing at the center of the wheel of fortune, which is the circle of life, is the master of all things. The Magus has mastered the 3 layers of mind. The subconscious is symbolized by the dark, waking consciousness, and the super consciousness called the light. The Magus is the master of the elemental forces of fire, water, she calls it wind, which is wands, and earth. Pardon me, wind is swords, and earth, and the 8 directions south, west, east, north, above, below, center, and ether. What does this mean? Symbolically, the elements and directions are forces of spirit. Fire, south, emotion, water, west, intellect, wind, east, and matter, east, north. Spirit, emotion, intellect, and matter are the first 4 directions. I meant to say and matter, earth, north. If I said east, I didn't mean that, sorry. The next 3 are above, below, and center. Above corresponds to superconsciousness, below to subconsciousness, center to waking consciousness. The final direction is ether. The ether is the substance that represents the summation of all that is. Ether is the direction which is everywhere and nowhere at once. Through combining and recombining the forces and forms of the elements in the 8 directions, the Magus transforms the world. The ability to transform the world is the result of possessing the secret essence of the alchemical process of the ancients. Through this process, the baser metals of self and world are transformed into gold, and the elixir of perpetual life is discovered. In coming to understand the secret alchemical process, the Magus must discover the power of the revelation I am. I am unique. I am separate. I am powerful. I am magical. I can create the world as I so choose. I am a visionary. I am the one life. I am the creator. Whereas the fool is all potential, all that is possible in the circle of existence, the Magus is the focal point, key one, at the center of this circle. Out of this point, all that was, is, and shall become, all that is manifest or material, proceeds through the powers of the Magus. Potential is focused and brought into existence. And she says more, but I'll close there. That was page, I didn't quote that, 254 to 256. Any comments on that?
Yeah, the alchemy part was interesting. The secret ingredient to alchemy, and it's really your soul.
Yeah.
It's really all about refining the soul, which is in this case you could say you could attribute that to Kether.
Excuse me. Yeah, and it depends on what people too think what the Royal Road is all about. A very materialistic person could look at the Royal Road and say, it's my way to wealth. It's my way to conquer and manifest this world and make it mine. Nothing wrong with that.
And
If that's what your chart and your path shows for this lifetime.
really you could say the other secret ingredient of alchemy is discipline, right? Because Binah, that's Saturn, which attributed to Binah, is that is what practical laboratory alchemy, not just philosophical, spiritual alchemy is all about. It takes a great deal of discipline.
Because it's very ceremonial in some of the ways that it's presented. And if something is not done right, it can lead to rather unfortunate events, which people can attest to has happened to them.
Oh yeah, that chemically, yes, but also, I mean, I guess I'll just talk about it a
Spiritually,
little
too.
bit because people just like to think, oh, the real alchemy is only spiritual. No, there is real laboratory alchemy, but it is basically philosophical spiritual chemistry. And I'll just give a short example. There's one operation in laboratory alchemy called circulation, where you get something, you could use like a wine bottle, something long and narrow. There's better professional lab equipment for this, but you could use a wine bottle and you put it on a warm, hot plate, not a hot plate. You could use like a candle warmer plate, not to boil the water, but just enough to get some of the water or whatever your solution is, because you might do this with any other solutions. This is often one step in a bigger process. But you take your solution, you warm it up in this long, narrow bottle, just enough to get some droplets to start forming up at the top near the neck. So you have this gentle evaporation. The the vapor touches the top, it gets cool, and it drips down again. And the way this is seen is that when the solution goes from liquid to a vapor, that is like your soul coming out of it, your body. And when the vapor cools and turns back down into a liquid, that is your soul going back into a body. And just as you repeat this in the wine bottle over and over again, this reincarnation of the soul over and over again, the idea is in ritualistic thinking, it's very much ritualistic thinking. As you symbolically do this on the table, you're also doing this to your own soul. It's essentially chemistry, ritual chemistry.
Wow.
And but of course there are claims that chemists make crazy mind altering concoctions, medicines. It really, what it is, it's Western Ayurveda. It's just become so lost because there's a whole medical aspect to this too, not just mind altering substances or creating gold, which there are modern alchemists that have claimed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a seriousness, I think, on the magician card that is required, right?
That's Saturn because it's connecting Kether to Binah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Saturn too, the black cube, often related to representative of Earth. I've come across this.
Yes,
And he's,
creation.
yeah, and he's pointing down as above, so below. Bring it out of the ether and put it down on Earth. Get busy. So when this card's reversed, let's talk about this because the magician doesn't just wish, he uses his mind to
Oh, can I just say one
strategize.
thing about the cube real quick?
Yeah.
The the mind blowing part of the cube. This is comes from Hermetic philosophy. I came across this in a book we mentioned before, Lamael Duquette, Understanding Crowley's Book of Thoth, where he explains the Hermetic philosophy. The cube, it represents creation because from it you get 7 planets from the 7 positions. That is center, up, down, left, right, forward, backwards. That's 7 planets. You also get the cube has 12 lines. Those are the 12 signs of the zodiac. And also, you can unfold the cube into a cross.
Yeah. The black cube. Well, isn't there a black cube in Italy, in Rome?
No, it's the Kaaba stone in um, Jerusalem or Israel, somewhere in Israel, the Kaaba stone
Is that
that
what it's called?
I think it's the one the Muslims dance around, and it may or may not be a meteorite. I'm not that well versed in it.
Yeah, I've
Or
seen
maybe the
pictures
Jews
of it.
dance
It's an
around it.
actual black cube, man. I've
Yeah.
seen pictures, unless the pictures weren't real, which, very much the odds of that is definitely becoming more and more likely.
I don't remember if it's Muslims or Jews, but people in funny hats are dancing around it and beards for sure.
Okay. All right, magician reversed. Let's button this up. I I'm going to take the card here off of my desk and I'm going to turn it upside down. And let's take a look at what I see. So, and you have your Thoth deck. I'm going to turn your magician upside down.
I don't read upside downs like that.
No? How do you read them?
I don't, it just never fit in my head like the upside down shuffle. I just didn't like it. Like if I get, I always do uprights, and then if I have to figure out for myself if it's the positive card side or the negative side, and then often I'll draw a clarifier or another clarifier, and that usually paints the picture nicely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with the Smith-Waite deck and the magician because that's what I've been using. And when you flip that around, of course, everything's falling off the table onto the ground where that's just not going to work. The cup is emptying out. Nothing's going to be stable on that table at all. Nothing's going to be left on the table. And so, lack of focus and missed opportunities. Who knows where all that stuff's going to fall down in the dirt and ruin your tools. And then you got to fix your tools and they belong on the table. And also resembles a hangman a little bit, right? He's a man hanging upside down. But it's almost like with that hand that was stretched out, that hand is touching the ground and it's like that hits first, the wand. And that wand's going to fall right out of his hand. He's not going to be able to hold it. And that wand is really important to the card. Because he's holding it up like a rod connecting to ether. What
And
is that?
likely, I think someone knocked him over because he was fucking lying, because that's also part of the shadow side of this card.
Yeah, I go into that a little bit too with the trickery and the lying and the deceit that can come up with Mercury, which is not good.
Yeah, even unintentionally, like we
Yeah,
mentioned in the beginning,
exactly.
the ape of Thoth, and that's, I think that's really interesting because you could be out there teaching the truths of the universe, and someone is going to horribly misunderstand it. Like for one example, I remember when I used to be on social media, there was this group of Thelemites that really took the teachings of Binah the wrong way, because the virtue of Binah, the great mother, is passivity. They took it as, okay, so women should shut the fuck up and listen to me.
Oh my
That's the ape
goodness.
of Thoth.
Wow. Well, I have there's a lack of focus when the magician's upside down, a lot of self-doubt and no action. That's for sure. If you're hanging there by your ankles from the, you're not even, your head's on the ground. You're not upright. You're not in a place where you can even use the tools. You don't even have the tools about you. Everything is discombobulated. Unexplored potential comes up. Poor planning comes up. Manipulation. From the Galaxy Tarot, when the magician is reversed, it indicates a blurred focus on your goals, doubts about your abilities, along with concerns about the support and resources available. That's important to note because all the resources are on the table, right? And if they're scattered, how does that make you feel? Not good. This can lead to hesitation and unclear communication. This card may also caution against misusing power or misleading others for self benefit. Yeah. Well, in my readings, I came across black magic, dark magic, nefarious magic, or what some would call baneful magic, and casting hexes, that type of thing on people, harming others. You familiar with this, of course, right?
Oh yeah.
It's
Dark side of the
vital.
magician for sure. I mean, I actually just before this, unintentionally, not even thinking about it, I was watching a documentary. This guy was documenting these people doing black magic in China and very well, Hong Kong actually, but very much the same. They had the only fucked up part about it that I didn't like. They had dead, preserved, dried animals, and even supposedly a human fetus, which I don't know if that was even real or not. But yeah, it gets fucked up sometimes with the body parts.
Yeah.
That's the dark side
And
of the magician.
and we have to realize that that's out there and that there's people like that and not be naive. And to have your wits about you is what comes to me really strongly intuitively. Like you cannot create if you don't have your wits about you. And Mercury is very witty, very witty.
Yeah.
Vital to realign with your true self and reevaluate your intentions. So if this comes up in a reading reversed, it's calling for you to be more responsible and to guard against being swayed by fear or deceit. Reflect on your own core values to regain clarity. And always remember genuine magic stems from clear intention and action. That's really important to remember, right? Clear
We've been
intention and
talking about
action.
will this whole time. There it goes
Yeah,
right
yeah.
in there.
Will is very important. So there's a Bible verse that says, I think it's in Proverbs, but it says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And the magician reversed is like that, double-mindedness. I'm going to read from
Aren't
the
we all
book.
double minded though? Like, because we're all part animal and part divine, a soul and a
Yes, that's a
body.
different conversation, though. He's talking about for the sole purpose of creating, you can't be thinking about being half human and half, your mind has to be fixed.
Or
You have
he's
to be
just talking shit
focused.
on Geminis.
Or Virgos. Virgos ruled by Mercury as well. I'm going to read from Tarot Beyond the Basics, gain a deeper understanding of the meanings behind the cards. I really recommend this book. I've not read every page. I use it as a tool. I'm working my way through it, but it's by Anthony Lewis. And he says of Mercury on page 39, Mercury, the Greek trickster god Hermes, is the winged messenger of the gods. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. The English word mercurial is used to describe people who are volatile, fickle, swift, animated, quick-witted, or unpredictable. Mercury's day is Wednesday. So if you want to do some magic, do it on a Wednesday with the magician card, right? He is associated
That's a
with,
little too general
well,
because really, with that kind of thing, like it depends on the kind of magic you want to do. You align with that planet, you align with the time, the hour, and then all the other times you can wait for planets to be in certain alignments.
it's a start.
Waiting for, yeah.
It's a start. He is associated with thought, communication, storytelling, learning, education, speech, writing, literature, media, news, advertising, travel, transport, commerce, duality, cleverness, adroitness, trickery, magic, and theft. Mercury is considered cool and dry like the element earth of ancient Greece. The Golden Dawn assigned to quick and clever Mercury to Tarot Trump 1, the magician. So you had said that. So there's a verification that that is indeed what the Golden Dawn did. Because you had said, didn't the Golden Dawn do that?
Yeah.
Now, I thought this was interesting. And he says this about the Magician Magnus card on page 247. This is getting into the shadow. The juggler, trickster, magician, magus, mountebank, existence, Mercury, weight, semicolon. The magician, skill, diplomacy, address subtly, sickness, pain, loss, disaster. Because we have to remember that Mercury rules the sixth house of health, one of the health houses. And, daily life where we have pain, loss, and disaster can occur. Snare of enemies, self-confidence, will, the querent, if male, a physician, magus, mental disease, disgrace, reversed, excuse me. If it's reversed, it could be a physician, magus, mental disease, disgrace, disquiet. He says something here. The Waite, he doesn't really like what Waite did. In early tarot decks, the character on this card was a traveling street performer whose skill as legerdemain, Legerdemain. Have you ever heard of that word?
Pretty sure that's a thief.
Allowed him to con his audiences out of their hard-earned money.
Yeah.
The magician in older decks is a dissimulating juggler, caster of dice, mountebank, and trickster. The Waite Smith deck corrupted this classic image into a goody two-shoes manipulator of cosmic forces. The Golden
What?
Dawn saw this card as a symbol of skill, craft, cunning, and, at times, occult wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Swiftfoot.
like the weight deck either, but that's just a retarded take. I mean, the juggler is so much more shallow because it's just like a street fucking trickster. Oh, sorry. The magician is so fucking corrupted because it goes deeper.
Well, let's
Like
see what else he
that's just
says. Yeah, I hear you. I wanted to read it because I wanted to get another side out there. Swift-footed Mercury Hermes, who was associated with this trump, came into this world a cunning thief. Within hours of his birth, so you got to look at the mythology of Mercury, man, right?
I know he's a
With
trickster. That's just one aspect.
Within hours of his birth, Mercury managed to slip out of his cradle and steal the oxen of his brother Apollo. So his um, brother is Apollo. When his
Yeah, it was.
brother, go ahead.
Sorry, keep going. You're probably gonna say what I was gonna say.
When his brother denounced him before their divine father, Jupiter, Zeus, the next day, Mercury asked naively, "What sort of animal is an ox?" and added, "How could I have stolen his oxen?
Oh
I
my
was
God.
I was only born yesterday."
That's exactly what I say when someone is like, "It smells like weed in here." I'm like, "What's weed?"
When the magician appears in a reading, we are being reminded that we were not born yesterday and that we do possess the skills and cunning to achieve our goals and win others to our point of view. Remember when you talked about the knights and how you felt like it was much more fitting than the king?
Yeah, that was
Because,
Crowley's idea, but I tend to agree.
okay, he brings this up. And he says the Knights of the Four Suits can be viewed as sub-personalities of the magician. Like the magician, they are youthful adults on their way to maturity. As pages, they learn the skills of a knight and hone their ability to manifest their desires. Now they are setting out to put their skills to the test in search of new adventures. So, yeah, I mean, he says more, but I thought it'd be interesting to bring up the whole shadow side of Mercury in that he can distort and scatter and block our creations, our ability to connect with others. And where the moon is the mind, Mercury is the mind too, in that it's how you use your intelligence to connect to other people, how you use your force to produce. with others and create with, because it's very mutable, right?
And I would reiterate what I quoted by Rabbi Ginsburg before about the Hebrew letter Beth. He said the quote was the revelation of light to higher states of consciousness and the concealment of light to lower states of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a little section here in closing on psychological and mental health implications because that's my world. And I want to point some things out here. It represents mental confusion when it's reversed, mental fog, lack of clarity. Um, Ideas may be abundant, but they're going to feel tangled up, leading to instability. And inspiration is going to be hard to take. Decisive action will not be there. It can manifest as procrastination, scattered energy, over analyzing everything can be done here too, to the point of paralysis where you're not getting anything done. That is a trait that can be found through Virgo because they're so analytical and they are the virgin, the archetype of the virgin. They want everything clean and want everything organized and everything healthy. That's what they drive after through Mercury. Whereas in Gemini, it's a little bit more flighty. And, the Hermit is Virgo, right? The Hermit is attributed to Virgo, not Gemini to the Hermit, where we see Gemini more tying into the Magician than Virgo would in this way, in that there has to be an air, this air going back to the word, going back to the breath. Gemini is air, right? There has to be this release in order for something to happen. And so you can have, you don't know how to do breathing. You're breathing shallowly. Your air, your communication isn't allowed to get out. This can bring self-doubt and cause your whole throat chakra to be shut down, disconnect you from your personal power. Manipulation and dishonesty can come forward on the darker end here of the spectrum. The reverse magician can represent the misuse of your personal power for selfish or unethical gain. I think that one of the basic core things that I learned that has always been so profound to me and sticks with me is the whole idea of revenge, and that we really don't need to take it because karma is now. We decided to set the time to do this recording and now it's happening. That's our karma, right? But I think karma is also future tense in that if you mistreat people or you don't honor your own power or you don't pick up your own sword or you don't have good communications, like there's going to be karma. And we don't have to take any revenge. We don't have to do the black magic. We don't have to do the hexing and the cursing. The card is supposed to be upright for a reason. And people that choose to do that hex others and cast their will, which is subjective because they're seeing it through only their lens and wish to do harm to others, that energy will return to them. It's like a basic law and rule on this planet that the Bible says you reap what you sow. So, what are your thoughts on all that?
I would disagree on 2 points. I mean, sometimes it's self-defense. I mean, one of the largest, I would say, strains of magic in America, hoodoo, it comes from slave magic. Hoodoo is what voodoo became after it was brought to the Americas and it was adapted to the herbs of the Americas and slightly mixed with Christianity. And a lot of people casting hoodoo spells, the typical story was, well, the slave master rapes my wife every night. Well, if I cast the spell on him, my wife might not get raped tonight. I mean, so there is a time and a place for these things. I would liken it to self-defense. And also there are there are many philosophies. Well, there are some philosophies on karma that and this I tend to agree with, that karma doesn't kick in until after you die. And I believe this for two reasons, because there's just no way to explain the filthy rich evil people that control this world and they get absolutely no consequences in this life. And the other thing is free will. Also, the universe is allowing you to dig yourself a hole so it can fuck you when you die, basically.
Okay, well, in regards to what you said about self-defense, self-defense is responsive, not offensive. I don't
Yeah,
have
but
any
you just said
problem.
throwing
No.
curses in general
Okay,
is bad.
I didn't, not in the case of self-defense. If somebody's coming at me right now and trying to stab me, and in my willingness to protect myself, they get hurt from my action, they should have never came at me. That's
Yeah.
self-defense. That's responsive. And I don't have any problem with defending myself or people defending themselves, no matter what it takes for that to happen. If it's my life or your life, I get it. But that's not what I where I was coming from. So that probably needed to be clarified. I understand that completely. And to the second part, you don't know really, I think, that there are consequences because I don't think in particular these people are, I mean, we don't know, but how happy are they? We don't know. We don't know. There might be consequences that we're not aware of. Some of the
Yeah,
wealthiest people could be very lonely.
I'm
You
sure
know?
they are, but is that really equal? Is there, depression and anxiety really equal to, like, I don't know, genocide, things like that, causing famines?
I understand all of that. I understand what you're saying.
That's what the afterlife is for.
Well, I think there is, I would disagree with you and say I think there is karma now because if I speak to my dogs a certain way, their tail goes between their legs and their ears go down and their heads go down. And you could say,
Okay.
well, that's training. But I can walk in a room and not say a word and look at them with my eyes and send my energy, and they'll do the same thing without me speaking. If I've, like come in the room and there's like a cushion torn up or something, and they're both sitting there, I can walk in and look at them and they know, like there's karma. There's an
I don't I don't know if I
immediate.
would call that karma. Maybe it's just, your aura, your energy.
No, if somebody does something bad, or good, there's a consequence. And that consequence is karma, wouldn't you say? The end result of your action
And
returning.
then, well, here's the other flaw with karma now. Then you can justify bad actions by saying, I am karma. You can say, you know what, I feel like murdering this guy today. And you know what? I guess that's karma at work.
Yeah, but there's other laws at work too. We can't just look at karma. You have to look at all of the law and the other laws that are at play where, if you return evil for evil, evil will never leave your house. That kind of thing. Um, you're just gonna go kill people because you disagree with them. I mean, do you have any kickback from that? Any consequence coming back to you from that? Probably.
Yeah, the only question is, does it happen in this lifetime or is it saved for the afterlife?
An astrologer, as I am, would say you're living out some of your karma from some of those past life
That's
decisions.
true because the Buddhist idea on this, at least the Tibetan Buddhist, is based on your karma. So if you're a real piece of shit in this life, you might spend a bunch of lives as a bug where you have no free will to burn off your bad karma until one day eventually you can be a human again. And then in the Hindu caste system, you know, the better your karma, the higher caste you're born in the next life.
Well, back to mental health here. I just want to say that there are some practical things that you can do to get that magician card flip back up if it's reversed in your life. And there's really practical tools. I want to encourage you to go out there and search for them. But some of them are grounding through breath work and the inhaling four, holding four, exhaling four beat works really good, especially if you drum to this, where you inhale four beats, hold four beats, release four beats, and you do that 3 times. And while you're doing that, you speak over your body, you speak over your mind, and understand that words are spells. I really believe that. If it's ever become more true, it's in this magician card and just the deeper layers that we brought out here, having to do with the word and the breath, and really try to eliminate mental chatter by doing mindfulness techniques where even for 5 minutes a day, you just sit and you observe your thoughts. And if a negative thought comes into your mind, have a pad of paper next to you and just say, okay, I got that thought, and write it down and then go back. And when these thoughts come to you, write them down and then examine those thoughts and do something with them and come up with a plan. If it says, boy, you really aren't very good with your diet and you're just a big fatty. You really look like crap. Write it down. Because see, all these things that are in the mind, all this chatter and all this negative stuff and all this self-talk, you cannot create when your mind is like that. Expressive writing, even for 20 minutes a day, helps you. It gets these thoughts out of your mind and onto a piece of paper. And it's almost like you can then look at them more objectively. So journaling for mental clutter is really, really helpful. Focus on one thing at a time. Train your brain to be intentional with social media and all of these other places we can be online, and the scrolling and the reels and the shorts and everything vying for our attention. It can create a disjointed mind. In fact, that's one of the ramifications, especially for young children who grow up on this. Their brains are being changed. And the one thing focus can really, really work here. And what you do is you just choose one task for the next 60 minutes. And before you start, you write down a single sentence. My intention for this next hour is to complete, and you write the task down with undivided attention. I will eliminate all other distractions. And that may mean shutting your phone off or putting it in another room if you're really attached to that thing in your hand. But getting tasks done that you have and choosing to get them done does what's called closing the loops. And the brain likes to close the loops. When you have a lot of open-ended things going on in your brain, it can be very, very challenging for the brain to focus. Another thing is grounding your body, like literally getting up out of your chair, going and doing something very, very physical, and then coming back in. You'll be amazed at how this helps you. Sometimes I'm going to go into a type of session like this where I'm structured and ceremonial, and I always take a walk. I always go out and ground the best I can. I mean, weather dependent, but it makes a huge difference. So there's just some little things that you can do that I would say help the mind declutter. That's the biggest thing that comes to me is decluttering the mind. Because if the mind is so busy with this chatter, and people that struggle with mental health because of trauma, you've got a lot of patterns that have been set up in your mode of thinking that's produced a program, and that program is on autopilot. And in order to be able to do what the magician is capable of doing, which is creating, we have to have a clear focus and a clear mind. And the problem with that, if you're on any type of pharmaceuticals, which often people who have mental health disorders are, is that those pharmaceuticals themselves can bring in the fog. And I'm not certainly advocating to get off of them. I'm saying maybe
I
consider
am.
maybe consider a more, well, sometimes they're needed. You know, I am not a psychiatrist licensed, so that is
I
not
am.
my field. I'm an energy worker and I'm a holistic worker, and believe that you know, it's warranted if there's adequate proof and you're working with a psychiatrist and it's more than you being seen for 15 minutes and now you're on some strong SSRI, and some of these really inhibit the brain. And the other thing that happens is there's other byproducts of these pills where you gain weight or your sexual drive is down or you're even suicidal and you become depressed. And, you know, it all depletes our ability to want to manifest, is what I'm saying here. It doesn't create a life that's conducive to manifesting dreams. And this is why people who are on a lot of these drugs are very, very challenged to be like the magician. I just wanted to bring that in because I think
I can
that, yeah,
I can confirm all of that from personal experience, and I would also add it it blocks you from meditating in a weird
yeah,
way, and because it blocks you off from meditating, I would say it literally like chemically cuts you off from spirit. It was and also SSRIs are known to block psychedelics, which
yeah.
also get you more in contact with spirit and the spirit world. It's as satanic of a drug you could possibly get. And I use that term in a symbolic sense.
Loss of the clear conduit, excuse
That's
me.
exactly what I just said.
Yeah, between the spiritual and the material. The wand pointing down, magician's white wand normally points to the heavens to draw down divine energy, is symbolically pointing down to earth or even inverted, and this can signify that the flow of energy is blocked. Internalized or grounding is lost. It shows a severance from the higher self or divine inspiration. The tools are scattered, they're in disarray. This shows a lack of focus, and the lemnisc infinity symbol over his head, symbolizing infinite potential and the cyclical nature of thought, is now often seen as tilted or distorted, reflecting a mind that's out of balance, overly intellectual, and caught in repetitive self sabotaging mental loops. So, regaining clarity is imperative if it comes reversed. Any closing thoughts here before you share your poem with us and we end this podcast?
That was perfectly described.
Okay. Well, I just want to say to everyone out there, uh, you're not alone. You have support that's waiting for you. And if you're struggling with your mental health and some of this is hit home, make sure you approach this the right way and do not stop taking medication because there can be severe ramifications for that. But
And
maybe
I am not a
consider
psychiatrist. I
that
was
is
joking.
correct. Yeah. We were very clear about that. We say that, we're not trying to give you advice that way. What I would say is go to your medical psychiatrist doctor, medical doctor and psychiatrist doctor, and be really clear and firm about what's happening to you in your body. And then perhaps consider a naturopathic doctor that might be able to help you in a non-invasive way deal with the mental health challenges and ultimately heal and get to the root sources and live this life of creativity and abundance through your efforts by utilizing all that's in abundant around us, just waiting for us to tap. It's pure potential right there. And it'd be a shame if we didn't hear from you and your gifts and see you flourish in the way that you can due to, your mental capacity not being what it can be. So with that, I hand it back over to you, Anthony. Thank you.
Gonna end it off with a poem called The Book, an excerpt from a longer poem called The Book of the Magus by Aleister Crowley. One is the Magus, twain his forces, four his weapons. These are the seven spirits of unrighteousness, seven vultures of evil. Thus is the art and craft of the Magus but glamour. How shall he destroy himself? Yet the Magus has power upon the mother, both directly and through love. And the Magus is love, and bindeth together that and this in his conjuration. By his wisdom, in the beginning, doth the magic speak truth, and send forth illusion and falsehood to enslave the soul. Yet therein is the mystery of redemption. By his wisdom he made the worlds. The word that is God is none other than he. Now then, shall he end his speech with silence? For he is speech. He is the first and the last. How shall he cease to number himself? By a magus is this writing made known through the mind of a magister. The one uttereth clearly, and the other understandeth. Yet the word is falsehood, and the understanding darkness. And this saying is of all truth. Nevertheless, it is written, for there be times of darkness, and this as a lamp therein. With the wand createth he, with the cup preserveth he, with the dagger destroyeth he, with the coin redeemeth he. His weapons fulfill the wheel, and on what axle that turneth is not known unto him. From all these actions must he cease before the curse of his grade is uplifted from him, before he attain to that which existeth without form. And if at this time he be manifested upon earth as a man, and therefore is this present writing, let this be his method, that the curse of his grade and the burden of his attainment be uplifted from him. Let him beware of abstinence from action, for the curse of his grade is that he must speak truth, and that the falsehood thereof may enslave the souls of men. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.